focusing their time and their attention on addressing the most urgent need of our citizens. Thank y'all very much. I think y'all know we're headed off to Corpus and Richmond. How are you?
I just had a briefing with the emergency management officials here in Miami-Dade County. Right now, the National Hurricane Center is reporting that Hurricane Irma remains a dangerous and life-threatening Category 5 storm with winds of 180 miles per hour. Category 5, 180 miles per hour. Based on what we now know, Miami-Dade will have major hurricane impacts with deadly storm surge, and life-threatening winds. We can expect this all along the entire East Coast. The Florida Keys should be prepared to start feeling the effects of the storm as early as tomorrow night. Look at the size of this storm. It's huge. It is wider than our entire state and could cause major and life-threatening impacts on both coasts, coast to coast. Regardless of which coast you live on, be prepared to evacuate. Floridians on the West Coast cannot be complacent. Just because models show going along the East Coast, the West Coast will still have hurricane conditions, and these storms can move and change. Remember, Hurricane Andrew is one of the worst storms in the history of Florida. This is much worse and more devastating on its current path. Irma has already caused multiple fatalities. This storm is powerful and deadly. We already have people in the Caribbean that have passed away, died. We are being very aggressive in our preparation for this storm, and every Floridian, every family should take this seriously and be aggressive. You've got to protect
ensure
your
our
family.
visitors to safety.
Possessions can be replaced.
Normal business
Your family
operations
cannot.
as quickly as possible.
This is
after
serious,
the storm.
and we cannot take chances.
The
It is
port and airport
life-threatening.
are not
This
sheltered,
is not a storm you can sit
and the
and wait
parking
through.
garages there are not suitable
One of our
places for
top
vehicle
priorities right
storage
now
during
is
an
fuel
emergency.
availability.
Bridges
We know there
between
are
the
problems with
barrier
supply
island
gas
and
stations,
the
and
mainland
we're
will
working
be
around the
locked
clock to
in
get
the
fuel for
down
you.
position no later
Last
than
night I
8
spoke with all
p.m.
the
Friday.
fuel retailers, and I just got off the
sooner
phone
if
just a
allowable.
couple minutes ago with the oil companies.
Boats requiring bridge
I've been
openings
very
will
clear
no
to the
longer be able
retailers
to
and the oil
leave
companies
after the
that we
bridges
have
are
to know
locked down.
that we have to get the fuel
New
as
River,
fast as we can
Southeast
out
3rd,
so everybody has
Southwest
the fuel
4th,
to evacuate.
Southwest 7th,
We need to know exactly what their needs are so we can solve their needs. The issues include fuel availability from our ports, federal rules and regulations, and getting fuel to traffic to gas stations. To address these concerns, we're doing the following. I've spoken to FEMA, the Department of Energy, EPA, and the White House about waiving federal rules and regulations to get as much fuel possible into our state and through our ports. I've directed state law enforcement to provide escort services to gas trucks to get through traffic so they can get to the stations faster. One of the issues is getting from the ports to the stations so they can put the fuel there and then get back and get more. Right after this, I'll be talking to all the fuel distributors. We know fuel is very important, and we're absolutely devoting every state resource to addressing this, and we're talking to the federal government about their support. While we're making progress, you will see lines or outages, unfortunately. I know this has to be very frustrating, and we will not stop working on this. If you're concerned that you do not have a way to evacuate because of a fuel issue, please call 1-800-955-5504, 1-800-955-5504, which is a dedicated transportation hotline. If you're in an evacuation area and you don't know how to get out, we will get you out, but you've got to call us. If you are, call us now. Do not wait. If you're in an evacuation area, do not wait to get out. We're not going to be able to save people once the storm hits. If you know you're going to a shelter in your county, please don't take only the fuel you need. You don't need to fill your tank to the brim to stay in your own county. I've said many times that you have to take what you need. We've got to be considerate to try to get as many people the fuel they need. The Gas Buddy app is a great resource to find open stations with fuel. Yesterday, I asked the governors of Alabama, South Carolina, and Georgia and North Carolina to rescind weight and driver regulations so out-of-state resources can move expeditiously into Florida. All of these states worked quickly to respond to our request, and we now have waivers from Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, and North Carolina. I've also spoken to the U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, and they have lifted federal regulations to get gas to Florida quickly. All ports still remain open and operating to bring fuel and supplies in. We are laser focused on how we get as much fuel as possible to our ports while they are open. I've offered school buses for transportation needs in Monroe, Miami-Dade, and Broward counties. At this time, Miami-Dade is using these services to help evacuate those with special needs, and Broward has buses on standby. Monroe said they do not need these buses right now, but our offer still stands. Right now, there is a mandatory evacuation order in effect for the Florida Keys. This means all residents and all visitors. I was down there yesterday doing everything we can to make sure citizens can get out. Let me get over.
All right, guys, so we are on. Welcome to Fox 5 Live. I'm here with Caitlin.
Good morning.
We're going to update you on this hurricane stuff. So I'm hearing a sound. This is right now a live look at Broward County in Florida. They're giving an update on what to expect as this heads towards Florida.
Yeah, here we are Thursday morning, and the first effects in South Florida won't be felt until probably late Friday night. So the time to get out is now, the time to prepare is now. Hurricane watches have been issued for all of South Florida, and evacuation orders, I think, go into effect shortly, right around noon. So luckily, if there is a good part in all of this, is that we've been tracking Irma for days, over a week now, and there's been a lot of lead time, and I think a lot of people have already gotten out who live in places like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Key West, and they're going to continue to get out. So, you know, luckily we've had a lot of time to prepare, and they still have another 24 to 36 hours to get out before the weather starts to take a turn.
And okay, so let's see what we're looking at right now. I guess we'll take this map because this is what we have right now.
Yeah, I'll get up and change them as we go through this, but this is just this is just a tropical satellite view of Irma. Still a very strong Category 5 hurricane, max sustained winds 175 miles an hour. It has weakened slightly since this time yesterday, but it's still a massive storm. It's still an incredibly strong storm. It's a Cat 5, and we saw it move across the north coast of Puerto Rico last night. Luckily, Puerto Rico avoided any sort of landfalling situation, but places like Turks and Caicos may be in that boat today.
Okay.
Yeah, it's approaching. It's in the open waters right now. The eye of it is north of Hispaniola, so not a direct hit for Dominican Republic and Haiti, but the Turks and Caicos Islands and the Bahamian Islands, there's a whole string of them. They're all broken up, and Irma's headed right for them today.
Right. I saw a map earlier this morning, and I'm kind of familiar with Marsh Harbor in the Bahamas.
Okay.
It's a smaller kind of, you take a jumper plane to it, and I remember, yeah, just seeing it sort of in the wake of this devastation or what could be. So we're kind of watching that, and then there's a couple other hurricanes that you've been tracking.
Oh yes, there are. Actually, we have. This is not uncommon during an active hurricane season to have more than one at once, and this is peak hurricane season, and we also have Hurricane Jose and Hurricane Katia. I can show another view of them in a minute.
Sure.
But Jose is, they're both Category 1, so they're weaker, and Jose is trailing Irma, and the concern with Jose is that it's really taking on the same path, and not that it's a threat to the U.S., because it doesn't look like it will be, but for some of the northern Leeward Islands that were just decimated by Irma yesterday, they are now under a hurricane watch for Jose. So, you know, it's a Category 1, but who wants to get hit by a Cat 1 after they were hit by a Cat 5 yesterday? I mean, places like Barbuda, 95% of the infrastructure was damaged on that island yesterday. The death toll's up to 10, and it is islands like Barbuda and I can never say that island.
I know, it's so hard to say. Me
That
too.
are under a hurricane watch. But so we feel for everyone there. Gosh, St. Martin, the pictures and the devastation that came out of there was
Really?
just awful from
Yeah.
yesterday. Puerto Rico, I will say, was spared the worst of it. They got lashed by the outer rain bands, and half the island doesn't have power, but the eye stayed well offshore. And it's really the eye wall, where you're getting those hurricane force winds up to 175 miles an hour. So that's like the worst of the storm.
So it has slowed down a little bit from what we
Yes,
initially
it has
saw.
weakened a little bit, and these fluctuations are normal in wind speed and pressure level, but the overall theme is that it's still a Cat 5, so any weakening is pretty insubstantial. It's just, it's a monster storm.
Okay, so you want to switch a map or two and
Yeah,
take
let me
another
go
look?
do that, and I will, first I'm going to go and show you all the hurricane watches, and then I'll show you the projected path. So
Awesome.
I'll be right back.
Kayla's going to step out. And guys, I'm seeing some of your comments on Facebook. Thanks for joining us on the stream. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, I see someone saying, hey, from Maine, DC. Obviously, lots of you around this area. We're going to get Caitlin back to talk about what we might expect in this area as these storms, all three, kind of move through and possibly come up the East Coast. So for now, let's check in with Broward County. They have a live little press conference here about what's going on and what to prepare for.
Storm preparation routines so that we drills so that we will be prepared for any eventuality. Thank you for that question. Okay, thank you.
I just want to add that we have FEMA here with us, and understanding that the governor had activated a state of emergency, FEMA is on deck and they're ready to help and they're ready to mobilize. And so we have our FEMA representative here with us as well. I would like to next invite our Broward County Sheriff, Scott Israel, to the podium to give a few words. Sheriff.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, team, for being here. Broward County, this storm is fast, it's powerful, it's devastating, and it's already claimed lives in the Caribbean. It now takes aim at South Florida. Finalize your preparations today. I repeat, finalize your preparations today. Go to the shelters if that's where you're going to go. Call 311 for any requests or any information you need about the hurricane. 911 lines are strictly for emergency, as always. Please call 911 if it's a true emergency. If you need information regarding the hurricane, please call 311. The hotlines will remain open throughout the storm. As your sheriff, I can assure you the Broward Sheriff's Office is ready, well-trained, and capable of keeping this county as safe as possible. I wanted to thank one of my colleagues, Commissioner Udine, and I worked on a project yesterday with State Representative Jared Moskowitz, and we were able to transport hundreds of animals from the Humane Society to California. Now, what that means for South Florida is possibly the Humane Society might be able to house your pet. I don't know that, but you might want to call the Humane Society and see if they have any openings so that you might bring your pet there. The mayor was outlined what shelters will be pet friendly. If you bring your pet to a shelter that's not pet friendly, the pet will not get in. Bring your medicines, bring bedding, bring games and puzzles for the kids. Let's try and make this as palatable and safe as possible. Monitor social media. The aftermath of the storm is probably the most critical thing that we have to do. When the storm is over, get on social media. Don't immediately go back to your homes. There might be roads that are impenetrable. It's very important to have a plan on how you're going to get back to your lives. You'll be getting information on gasoline, on when stores open up, when Home Depots and Publixes open up. So monitor social media. We'll be doing continual press conferences. We will be disseminating information. Have your plan in place, finalize it today, and do everything you can to stay safe.
Thank you, Sheriff. I would like to invite Ms. Juliette Roulette back. I need her to give the number for FPL.
All right, guys, as that goes on, we're going to come back into the newsroom here with Caitlin to give us more on this. We have another map to look at.
Yeah, and
right?
this is your watches and warnings, and the big news that just came out about an hour ago was that South Florida is now under a hurricane watch. And we knew this was coming, but it just adds to the seriousness of the situation as we go forward. This takes effect now and really goes until Monday. This will likely be upgraded to a hurricane warning once we get closer. Again, Irma not expected to impact South Florida at all until late Friday night. The worst of it probably early Sunday morning. So it's all of South Florida, by the way. You know, South Florida is a tiny, narrow little channel, and so even though we've seen a lot of our models agree on a consensus in which Southeast Florida, Miami looks to take the brunt of the storm, you know, Southwest Florida is not far away from Southeast Florida. You're talking like a matter of less than 100 miles. So you've got, you know, so the whole area is, so places like all of the Keys, including Key West, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Delray Beach, as well as Naples, Florida on the southwest side are all under a hurricane watch. And all coastal areas are too. And this is for not just wind and rain, but storm surge. And storm surge is such a deadly part of a hurricane making landfall because all the power of the storm, along with the wind and rain, is pushing on shore. And that's where you talk about, you know, those incredible wave heights and erosion and flooding and all the issues with a hurricane making landfall. And especially if it's as strong as it is now, a Cat 4 or Cat 5, which is forecasted to be at least a Cat 4 strength.
Okay, well guys, more information too in the article that is pasted right below this stream, so you can always click on that. We have the updates on there, but what else were we going to say about?
Well, one thing is, so we know that it's going to be impacting South Florida by the weekend, but first, and which will give us a good handle on Irma getting closer to the weekend, is today, all those little red dots you see are actually hurricane warnings hoisted for all the Turks and Caicos Islands and all the Bahamian Islands. So as I mentioned earlier, Irma, as a incredibly powerful Cat 5, is going to move over the Turks and Caicos Islands later today, and then the Bahamian Islands into early tomorrow morning. So from there, we'll really see if from moving over the land masses of the islands, if that weakens Irma at all, before it sets its sights on Florida.
Let's talk about, too, we were just chatting about this when we were switching it out, the differences between this storm and Harvey, how Harvey sort of came out of nowhere, 48 hours in advance that we knew what to do, how to brace yourselves, and this one's more of like a week-long projection.
Irma is much more of a traditional hurricane that we follow as it forms off the coast of Africa. It moves through the Atlantic, and moving across the Atlantic takes weeks, not days, and then strengthens and moves into the Atlantic Basin, the Caribbean Sea, and we get a handle on where it's headed from there. So there's a lot of lead time. And so we've had a good idea since today's Thursday, since probably Monday, that Florida could potentially be taking a hit from this. So that gives you 5 days lead time of some good warnings and some good time to get out of town and some good evacuation plans. Harvey was totally different because Harvey was actually a storm that formed in mid-August in the Caribbean and moved across the Yucatan, and then its remnants were left over in the Gulf, and it reformed very quickly, kind of just right on top of Houston. So somewhere like Houston and Southeast Texas saw very little storm surge because the storm kind of just formed on top of them. It didn't move, it rained itself out, and flooding was the big issue there. But for here, this is moving at a more traditional hurricane speed, and it's not going to get stuck, and it's not going to cause the massive flooding that it did in Houston, but it's bringing the most intensity that you can get of any storm, which is potentially a major hurricane, so storm surge becomes a much bigger issue.
And so if you were to define storm surge in general, what does that exactly mean for people?
So storm surge is, you know, the increasing wave heights and the tropical storm force / hurricane force wind gusts, and that's mostly felt at the coast. So all the beaches, you know, and all those coastal communities will be evacuated because when you start talking about major hurricane storm surge, you know, shredding palm trees, ripping roofs off of homes, busting through windows, destroying buildings in its wake because it's just blowing in with such an intensity. Yeah.
And you guys see like these counties are continuing to have these updated press conferences on what to do. They're prepping for it as this comes up for this weekend. So guys, I'm watching some of your comments here, some of you from Florida yourselves, so keep the comments coming if you are from sort of the area down there. A lot of you from the DMV kind of asking about this. So what is the potential, what are the remnant effects that we feel up here? We don't know yet.
Yes, we don't really know yet in that we have to see what path Irma eventually takes. I mean, we are only as good as the model guidance that we get every few hours, and there is still a margin of error in that track, and I'm going to go show you that track in just a minute. But once we can get a handle on where Irma makes landfall, if it makes landfall, and where it eventually tracks to how it'll impact us. Now, my best guess right now is that by Tuesday we'll feel some sort of effects. I mean, it's hard for us to escape no effects if this hits the East Coast and moves straight northward, as they usually do. It looks like Tuesday into Wednesday we could have some rain here. Now, whether that is flooding rains and tropical storm force winds, or whether that's just a shower or two, is still kind of up for grabs. But just know that we will feel to a much lesser degree. And
Much lesser.
Yeah. Probably be some leftover rain like we got from Harvey over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm getting some questions from North Carolina, so a little more south of us. Thoughts about that? I mean, similar?
Yeah, so the Carolinas, you know, they should be alarmed as well. Southeast coast, Georgia, South Carolina, even North Carolina, because some model guidance wants to avoid a direct hit to Florida. That would be great, keeping the bulk of the storm offshore, but then it moves due north, and if you look at the setup of our country, the way it's, you know, that would be straight north into the Carolinas. And so that would mean more of an impact and a direct hit for the Carolinas. Now, would it be as strong of a hurricane by the time it got there? Probably not, but it still could have an incredible amount of damage. Let me go change the graphic, and I'll show you guys the latest track that came out of the National Hurricane
Perfect,
Center.
yeah, and I'm continuing to track your questions. Guys, keep them coming. I see some thoughts about Jose and what the likelihood of that hitting this area is. But for now, guys, we're going to start with this coverage and just talk it out. So keep the questions rolling here on Facebook or on YouTube if you're joining us. We're Fox 5 Live. We're here in the digital newsroom in D.C. So we're going to be back with Caitlin in just a second. Looks like that press conference has ended in Broward County. But we do have an update from the Florida governor, Rick Scott. He spoke this morning. We're going to play that out for you in a little bit as well on YouTube. You probably already caught it on Facebook. Again, check the article that is posted right below this for the latest. We're continuing to update whatever we hear because we've been talking about this since Monday throughout the week. There's been time to sort of plan for this, to talk about it. Caitlin just changed the map, so we're going to talk about timing, I guess, and wind speed. She's editing it as we speak. So, yeah, I know some of you have thoughts about Jose. I'm going to ask her when she gets back. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Guys, we're going to keep on with the show today throughout the afternoon, covering this as we get more maps, more information, more press conferences from the different counties surrounding the areas that may be hit. I was seeing some of my friends actually from high school are in the Virgin Islands. They live there in St. Thomas, and they've been posting on social media about that they are safe, that they're looking for some of their island friends, but so far everyone is safe and contained. So it's really wild just to hear from some people that have made their homes there that are just sort of like, we can't get out, we weren't able to, we're going to stay. If any of you have close contacts there or are perhaps down in that area, let us know in the comments. I want to read some of them out. And then let us know where you're watching from too, so we can kind of talk about your area and what you might be concerned about. It looks like she is switching the map right now. So we're going to keep on with this and then switch it up to some other talk of the day, including it's the NFL season openers starting tonight and some other politics news from the newsroom as well. Here we go, some changes in the map. So Caitlin will be back with us in just a second. And I think the latest is that 10 people, as far as we know it, have been killed in this Category 5 storm. So we're going to get more updates on that as well. But all that information, again, in the article right below this stream. So you can always click on that for the updated information. Here's a live look at some people. I think this is down in Broward County, actually, prepping with sandbags. This is just some live bump shot feed of what people are doing down there. Yeah, thanks for coming back. No problem. This is Broward County. They're prepping with sandbags. I was just checking into that.
Good, as they should be. So if we get that whole map up, I'll show you the latest track that came out. This now goes through next Tuesday. Okay, so here's where, you know, at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, that's where Irma is now, Cat 5, just north of the Dominican Republic. So by 8 a.m. Friday, that's tomorrow morning, it's crossing through the Turks and Caicos Islands as a Cat 5. that, even just that tiny landmass will weaken it slightly. And it looks like by Saturday morning, it's a Cat 4 somewhere in between Cuba and the Bahamian Islands. It would be great if we could avoid a direct hit on either of those land masses. Now, because it's moving over open water, it is expected to maintain its strength as a Cat 4, literally making landfall Sunday morning in Miami or somewhere near Miami on the southeast coast of Florida. Now, again, this is a guidance. You see that the actual cone, those white lines, stretches out further and further as you get deeper into time and further north up the coast, because it accounts for the margin of error in this modeling. And so, you know, it's very possible that the Cat 4 will hit Miami, or it'll stay offshore, it'll move a little bit further to the west. So nothing's written in stone, but it is a very good guidance going forward. And this is why they are ordering evacuations and sandbagging along coastal towns in Florida, because that's a major hurricane hitting them. And storm surge is the biggest issue there in southeast Florida. Now, what a lot of the models want to do is then take this up the Atlantic coast of Florida and weaken it by Monday morning, impacting places like Jacksonville in northeast Florida, Savannah, Georgia, then through Tuesday, and then making a second perhaps landfall somewhere along the Georgia-South Carolina border. And then you see at the very top of your screen by Tuesday morning, it's just remnants moving over Charlotte, North Carolina. And that means by Tuesday, it's a remnant low, it's no longer tropical, it's no longer got the characteristics of a hurricane that would bring life-threatening storm surge or wind gusts, but there's probably a lot of rain that would impact us. Possibly.
Okay, so North Carolina, probably a good amount of rain.
But we have a lot of ways to go, and we're not really sure. So here's what we're not sure about. We're not sure if, say, this is going to make landfall along the Florida coast, and Florida bears the brunt of it before it drifts northward and weakens considerably, or if it mainly stays offshore and continues to remain a strong category, moving along open waters along the east coast of Florida, and then landfall somewhere along the Georgia-South Carolina coast as a major hurricane.
Wow.
So your original question was, should the Carolinas be aware of the potential? And they should, yes, Georgia and the Carolinas. I mean, it looks like a better chance of a threat for South Florida for now, and Florida's up first, but...
Yeah, and we don't want to detract from the fact that this is a really sad situation. Already, I think we read about 10 deaths in this.
Yes,
hurricane?
already the death toll's up to 10. This was after this Cat 5 has moved over the northern Leeward Islands, including Anguilla and Barbuda and St. Martin. Those were the three that really felt a direct hit from the storm.
Wow.
Following that, it moved, the eye of the storm moved across, moved north of Puerto Rico, so they avoided a direct hit. We'll see what happens as it goes through Turks and Caicos and comes towards the Bahamas, although this new track wants to keep things south and west of the Bahamas so that they avoid a direct hit, and Cuba avoids a direct hit. But then that would be the setup for it to take a turn right into Miami. Palm areas like
so a couple of people also asking about the effects of Jose, which I think is the farthest one out right now.
Jose is totally far out. It's a Cat 1. It is not going to have an impact on the U.S. at this point.
Okay.
It's supposed to the northern Leeward Islands may feel some impacts. Anguilla and Barbuda are under a hurricane watch, but it is expected to, unlike Irma, which is tracking northwest towards the U.S., that's supposed to make a turn to the northeast and stay out to sea.
So that's a good answer for you guys that were asking about Jose. Also from Kathy, thanks for this question. She says, if it doesn't make landfall in Florida, could it gain more strength into the Atlantic or in the Atlantic and then hit the Carolinas harder?
Absolutely, yes. That's a great question. That's a great question, and that is the big question mark. Is it going to be a direct hit for Florida, which would be devastating, but would weaken it substantially? Or is it going to stay stay just offshore, give a glancing blow to the southeast Florida coast, continue to remain a major hurricane as it moves northward, and possibly has a landfall somewhere along the Georgia-Carolina coastline? So that is... We don't know. And you know what? Unfortunately, you don't really know until it's happening. I mean, it's a very close call with that eye of the storm along Miami and the southeast coast. So I would say that's why Georgia and Carolinas need to be ready for the possibility.
Sure.
And they'll have the benefit of seeing what happens in Florida first.
Okay, and interesting, because that was my next question, sort of the timing of this, it's sort of unknown. So tomorrow, how far will we get in knowing? We don't even know.
Well, we have a lot of consensus with the track. I mean, I have confidence in it. I think the National Hurricane Center has a lot of confidence in this track, but it's so close. You know, it's literally a battle of inches to whether this is going to make a direct landfall in southeast Florida or whether it's going to stay offshore. The two major models we look at, one says yes, it will, one says no, it won't. What if we split the difference? You know, It sounds like not a big deal, but it actually is when it comes to maintaining the intensity of the storm. But by tomorrow morning, the closer we get, the better of an idea we have. By tomorrow morning, we'll see how Irma behaves moving through some of these islands. And South Florida won't even be feeling the effects until late Friday night, early Saturday morning. Places like the Carolinas won't end until Sunday into Monday.
And Kim's saying she's supposed to be leaving for Myrtle Beach on Saturday. What should she do?
Just not go, I would say. I mean, either way, you're going to have terrible weather.
Yeah,
I don't
bummer.
really see it as a beach week. If she could hold off a few days, that would be great, because Myrtle Beach right now looks like, at the very least, they'll have some terrible rain, and at the worst, could be sustaining a direct impact from the
my
storm.
goodness.
Yeah.
So also some questions what they're doing with the sand. This is preparations for basically,
For a hurricane, yeah. And Floridians are accustomed to this. But when you talk about preparing your home for a possible hurricane hit, you want to evacuate, but you want to protect your property as best as possible. So you board up the windows and shut it all down so that it holds together, it doesn't break any glass. And then the sandbags, which help to absorb any of the water that could come rising up to the house, it absorbs some of the storm surge and some of the water. So that's what all the sandbagging is for.
Asking questions about Fayetteville, North Carolina. I think it's the same thing with the Carolinas that we were chatting about.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly if it'll gain more strength, right, and then hit, or just some
Well, it really,
rain.
You know what? The Carolinas have the benefit of being further north, and therefore the odds are in your favor that the storm will weaken by the time it gets to you. But, you've got two possibilities. Hitting Florida, weaker storm for the Carolinas. Missing Florida, heading straight for the Carolinas and being a stronger storm. And that, I'm afraid, we're just not really going to know until it's such a close call, until we see how it behaves in Florida. Or, by tomorrow we might have a better idea. I favor the model that has the hit on Miami, which sounds terrible. I don't want to favor that solution, but that could be devastating for parts of Miami, but it also would avoid a stronger hit for the Carolinas.
Wow.
But a lot of the other models want to say it kind of ricochets off the southeast Florida coast and just goes due north into the Carolinas.
Is Miami prepared for this? I mean, we were seeing press conferences from Miami-Dade County yesterday. Floridians are used to this, but is Miami as a city sort of prepared? I mean,
they haven't had a direct hit from a major hurricane since 1992. It's been 25 years. So think about how much changes in 25 years. I don't know. But the good news is they've had a lot of time to prepare. They've been out ahead of this storm since the beginning. So I think they're doing the best that they can.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Caitlin. We're going to check into Governor Rick Scott. He's speaking right now with some updates. So
sounds good.
Thanks. We'll update you guys tomorrow with Caitlin again.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Right now, there's mandatory evacuation orders in effect for the Florida Keys. This means all residents and all visitors in the Florida Keys. There's a mandatory evacuation. We estimate about 31,000 people have already evacuated from the Keys as of 6 p.m. last night. If you're in the Keys and you do not have a way out, please call 1-305-517-2480. This number is for Monroe County residents, 305-517-2480. All other Floridians can call the Florida Emergency Hotline at 1-800-342-3557, which is a dedicated emergency management hotline for the entire state. If you're in the Keys and still home, leave, get out. We can't save you once the storm starts. The entire Lower Keys Hospital has been evacuated. All other hospitals in the Keys will be evacuated today. I've been very clear with Monroe County that the state will provide whatever resources are necessary to get the hospitals back open quickly following the storms. We also have a task force dedicated entirely to helping prepare and respond to the Keys. For the remainder of the state, waiting on evacuation orders, listen to your local officials. They will tell you if and when your area needs to be evacuated. If you're told to evacuate, do not wait. Get out quickly. The roads will fill up quickly, so you need to go immediately. We can expect additional evacuations as the storm continues to get nearer to our state. Miami-Dade has already ordered mandatory evacuation zones A and B. If you live in these zones and you're still home, you should leave right now. There are involuntary evacuations being ordered in Collier County. Broward County has issued voluntary evacuations of mobile homes in low-lying areas. I cannot stress this enough. Do not ignore evacuation orders. Remember, We can rebuild your home. We cannot rebuild your life or your family. Regardless of what coast you live on, be prepared to evacuate. Floridians on the West Coast cannot be complacent. This storm can still move west. Traffic. I know many of you are stuck in traffic. I know it's frustrating, but please be patient. Evacuations are not meant to be convenient. They are meant to keep you safe. We've increased the number of troopers on Florida highways to help move traffic and keep people going down the road safely. Real-time traffic information and evacuation routes are available at fl511.com. We have traffic cameras on every major roadway in Florida and are clearing traffic issues in real time so we can keep people moving. FDOT and law enforcement are working diligently. We are already seeing bottlenecks at major highway junctions, which brings up an important point. You do not need to evacuate out of the state or hundreds of miles away to stay safe. Find shelters in your county. We are coordinating with Google's emergency response team to prepare closed roads in Google Maps in real time in the event that Hurricane Irma forces the closure of any roads in the aftermath of the storm. At my direction, all tolls have been waived across Florida roadways. This should help families evacuate quickly and safely. Again, if you're concerned that you do not have a way to evacuate due to traffic in Monroe, please call 305-517-2480. Or if you're outside of Monroe, the rest of the state number is 800-342-3557. Florida National Guard. Today I'm activating another 3,000 National Guardsmen to help with shelter operations and evacuations. Today we will have more than 4,000 Florida National Guard members activated to immediately begin assisting with ongoing Irma preparation. Tomorrow, every member available, 7,000 will be deployed. 13 helicopters and more than 1,000 technical high water vehicles are on standby ready to be deployed. By using resources from other states, we also have 30,000 troops, 4,000 trucks, 100 helicopters, and air evacuation crews ready to support our state. I spoke with President Trump multiple times, and he has assured me that Florida will get all the help from the federal government that we need. He has assured me the federal government will be our partner and provide all the federal help we need. So far, we've requested a variety of things: disaster tarps, water, baby food supplies, supply trucks, search and rescue personnel, and equipment and incident management teams. Military watercraft and aircraft with the capability to move fuel from the mainland to Keys at Marathon. A military vessel like a Marine or Navy ship to sustain shuttle operations and complete ship-to-shore missions. This vessel would allow us to move crews, supplies, and fuel to the mainland. I also mentioned the major concerns with the Florida Keys to FEMA, including any potential destruction of bridges. If we lose a bridge, people south of that bridge will be stranded. FEMA is looking at options to assist the state with this. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission is preparing search and rescue teams for potential deployment. FWC has more than 200 officers standing by for the first wave of response based on potential storm impacts. 30 teams with supporting resources such as trucks, coastal and riverboat patrols, ATV, and shallow draft boats are preparing for evacuation support, search, and rescue operations, and any additional needs. FWC is also coordinating with partners in states such as Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, Missouri, Tennessee, Louisiana, and Arkansas, in case additional officers or resources are needed. The Florida Highway Patrol is monitoring road and safety traffic conditions to ensure roadways are clear. FDLE has established 18 emergency response teams for deployment to impacted areas and 7 logistics and planning teams. Utility providers, and Eric Szilagyi is here with us right now from FP&L. They are actively pre-positioning resources throughout the state and in neighboring states. We know from previous storms how incredibly important it is for power to be restored quickly. Florida Power & Light has activated this emergency response plan and has thousands of workers preparing to respond to Irma. They're one of the largest providers in our state. They're also working with out-of-state utilities and electrical contracting companies to secure additional resources. They have opened more than 20 staging sites throughout this service area where restoration crews, trucks, and equipment are stationed. Lake Okeechobee. Water levels in Lake Okeechobee are still being lowered, and the lake is currently at 13.67 feet. At this point, we have no major concerns with the dike. We will immediately advise if any of that changes. We are staying up with the Army Corps of Engineers and the South Florida Water Management District. Shelters. If you're evacuating for the Keys, you can shelter at Florida International University. There's absolutely no reason for anyone not to evacuate if you're ordered to evacuate. Shelters are available and will be available, and you should follow the directions of local officials to go to the shelter that fits your needs. If you need a hotel, go to Expedia.com/Florida. Expedia is working on hotel occupancy in real time. The Florida Restaurant Lodging Association has encouraged all hotels to waive pet policies, offer shelter, and be compassionate with cancellations. Families can go to floridadisaster.org/info to learn where shelters are open in their area. Comcast, they're opening more than 137,000 free Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots throughout the state for individuals in need, including non-Comcast customers. For a map of these hotspots, visit xfinity.com/Wi-Fi. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile are also helping with hotspots. The state is staging supplies such as meals, shelter support trailers, and water at the State Logistics Resource Center in Central Florida for deployment as needed. We will be pre-positioning these goods to help everyone in the storm's path. We still need volunteers. We need more volunteers. We've had more than 6,800 volunteers sign up in the last 24 hours, and that's great. I want to thank everybody for signing up. This includes more than 1,000 state workers. This is great, but we still need more. We ultimately need 17,000 volunteers statewide. You can go to volunteerflorida.org to sign up for volunteer opportunities, or you can call 1-800-FL-HELP-1. Volunteers make a huge difference in these emergencies and help with shelters, food distribution, and response efforts. Every Florida family must prepare to evacuate, regardless of the coast you live on. We do not know exactly where this storm is going. We know a projected path. We do not know exactly where the storm's going. We are 100% focused on making sure Floridians and visitors have timely information on this storm, and we will continue to closely monitor Hurricane Irma and issue updates throughout the next few days. But I cannot stress this enough. Get prepared now. Know your evacuation zone. Listen to your local officials. This storm has the potential to catastrophically devastate our state, and you have to take this seriously. This is a catastrophic storm that our state has never seen. Remember, it's already killed many people in the Caribbean. People do not believe you can ride this storm out. If you're told to evacuate, you've got to evacuate. You can rebuild your home, you can get your possessions again. You cannot rebuild your life or your family. Protecting life is our absolute top priority. No resource or expense will be spared to protect families, but we cannot protect you in the middle of the storm. This means you need to plan now on where you need to go. Do not wait. Figure out where you need to go. Cada familia tiene que tomar este huracán en serio. Tiene que tener un plan 3 días de agua, alimentos y las medicinas que necesiten. Como gobernador, mi prioridad es que todos, familias, turistas en la Florida, estén seguros y preparados. I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
Is there any talk of dealing with the traffic situation that we're seeing on the Turnpike 995 in terms of potentially switching lane direction?
So right now we're Highway Patrol, FDOT, everybody's monitoring all the highways across the state. The first thing we would do, but everything we do it where we do it's going to be safely, was we would do the shoulders. But the goal is we got to do this very safely. We'll do everything we can. The bottom line is, if everybody evacuates when they're supposed to evacuate, everybody should have the time to get to shelters. That's our goal. Every county knows the time frame it takes. We're asking everybody to even give a little bit more time, because this can impact any part of our state, and so we're going to see a lot of evacuations.
Governor, for people who've been leaving the state, have they been able to get enough gas to make it all the way out of Florida?
Yeah, they have, and we're working to get more fuel into the state. You can go to Gas Buddy, that app, and find fuel. We have not found an area where there's complete outage. Unfortunately, there are lines. I was down in Hialeah a couple hours ago, and there's lines. There were lines there yesterday. When I was in Collier yesterday, my family told me there are places that are out, and there's other places that I drove by that there was nobody in line. And so it's you've got to go. You've got to find out where it is. But we're doing everything we can. We're trying to get more tankers in. We are trying to get more supply into the state through trucks. We are providing escorts to the carriers to get it to the stations. We're telling the stations stay open as long as possible. We'll make sure your employees get out if you're in an evacuation zone. So we're doing everything we can. Unfortunately, I know there's outages, I know there's lines, and it has to be frustrating waiting right now. I mean, I'm sure people are frustrated. I ask people, don't take what if you don't need it. If you know you're going to stay in the county, don't go fill your tank to a brim, because there's other people that might not be able to, that are going to evacuate and they're going to leave. Anybody else?
You said that anybody in Florida should be prepared to evacuate. Is it your understanding that this storm stays the same strength it is now, and it's going to hit a particular area? Whoever is in that area where the storm is going to hit are the ones that will be issuing sudden mandatory evacuation?
Well, yeah, we're going to track the storm, and we're going to make the decisions will be made as the storm comes up the state. What everybody has to realize, though, is that if you're in that cone that the National Hurricane Center has put out, the storm can move west. Now we could be lucky, and the storm move way east, right? And stay off the coast, like what happened with Matthew. But it could still go up the west coast. So everybody's got to follow this. And if you're in that zone that the National Hurricane Center has put out, you need to be following this to see if to see what's going to happen. The evacuation zones will come out. One thing this is different than, like Andrew, the storm surge is traumatic. It's completely different. We could see houses covered, and it's not like Harvey where it was a storm that came and sat. At least we don't believe that's what's going to happen right now. And I mean, always something could happen. This is the water's just going to come in from the coast, and it could cover your house. We could have 10 plus feet of storm surge. So we'll be doing the evacuations, but everybody's got to listen.
We've been flooded with text calls and emails from viewers who are not in potentially a mandatory evacuation zone, and they're asking, should we leave now? Should we stay? What is the recommendation to those people?
So you should listen to the local officials in your area, and they will tell you exactly what you should do in that area. And so you have a very good emergency management team here, led by Bill Johnson, and everybody here, they'll be putting out the information on exactly what people should do. All right, thanks everybody.
Well, there you go, guys. Recommendations from the governor to evacuate no matter what coast you are on. You heard it right there. So that's the latest from Governor Rick Scott. Guys, with that, we are going to continue our coverage more online and on the air as well tonight. You can read that article that's posted right below this. For more, we're going to keep updating it with the latest, and of course we'll try to have Caitlin back in the morning to talk about the updates on the 3 hurricanes that are brewing, and Irma, of course, which is coming up the East Coast. We're going to have somebody else in this chair soon, but you can join us over on our YouTube channel for more political and sports coverage for today's live stream show. All right, thanks for watching, guys. We'll leave you with this bump shot of this map that you can check out one more time. All right, YouTube, what's up? We're back in the studio. Welcome to the show. Nostalgic Soul, I see that you're in Naples, Florida. I really hope you can stay safe down there. I know you're saying you've been through multiple hurricanes, as lots of Floridians know and have been through. But obviously, guys, very serious in nature. We're going to continue to bring you updates as we have them this week on the track of that hurricane. So really fascinating stuff, but don't want it to dominate everything, guys. Right now, a live look at President Trump right now outside the White House, greeting the Kuwaiti leader with whom he's making a joint press statement, a conference later this afternoon. So let's check in here.
Event is over. We're going to give you
So Khalil, I was wrong. He's a short guy.
All right, so guys, lots of live stuff going on right now. I don't want to miss anything, so I see a few things coming in. We're going to go to, we're losing this shot, so I'm going to bring it back in. We're going to go over to North Carolina. Governor of North Carolina is now speaking about prep for Irma as these storms come up the East Coast, so let's check in there just briefly, and then we're going to come back to the D.C. area for more politics.
Yes, ma'am.
A couple other topics for people at home to just start thinking about as they make their plans. Any talk or have any shelters been pre-staged or pre-set up at this point? And then also, I'm looking at a picture right now of a grocery store in Raleigh, and bottled water shelves look awfully bare. People run into trouble getting bottled water, which is obviously part of the recommendation. What do they do?
Well, Mike, I'm going to let you talk about the shelters.
So sheltering is a county responsibility, and counties will open shelters as they see a need. And so right now we haven't heard any counties talking about evacuations or anything like that, but should they decide to set up a shelter, that's a decision that they'll make. And as far as the water, you'll see that prior to storms that the demand often, outstrips the supply. And so we just ask for people to get what they need and in order to keep them safe. And so, but I think that our suppliers are working hard to keep the stores stocked as hard as they can.
And that's the same for gasoline as well. Take what you need. We were fortunate that we didn't have as bad a shortage as we thought we could have had with Hurricane Harvey and the cutting off of the Colonial Pipeline. We declared a state of emergency very early and made sure that the supplies were open, and so right now that has not been an issue.
Price gouging on I saw some pretty
Right now, we have not. We'll stay in touch with the Attorney General's office, but each state has different laws on price gouging. And North Carolina's law is any price that is unreasonably excessive under the circumstances. So we ask people who think that price gouging has occurred to report those to the Attorney General's office. One of the things we found about our good price gouging law is that it works as a deterrent. And the merchants know that when a state of emergency has been declared, that people are going to be watching, people are going to have cell phones on prices, and they're going to be letting people know about it. And let's also remember that most businesses in North Carolina really help people. They aren't trying to gouge, and in fact, they give away things to people to help during storms.
So a little bit there from North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper. We're going to go down to Miami-Dade County now because we were just talking about that earlier. Marco Rubio is actually up live talking about their preparations down in Florida as they brace for Irma. So let's go down there.
Trasladar a esas personas a un sitio que esté fuera de la zona posiblemente afectada por este evento. Sí, el congresista tocó ese tema, ¿no? Primero, como hemos visto ya a través, por razón del huracán que ocurrió en Texas, el FEMA se le acaba el dinero muy pronto. Entonces, hoy el Senado va a pasar, va a votar y va a aprobar una propuesta que le da fondos adicionales de emergencia para seguir operando hasta el fin de este mes, de septiembre, es decir, dos semanas más. Obviamente, después de eso y después del huracán, va a ser necesario regresar a ver qué fondos de emergencia hacen falta. Están en este momento utilizando $200 millones diarios. Y obviamente esa cifra pudiera cambiar después de la tormenta, así que es posible que el Congreso tenga que regresar rápidamente a aprobarlo. Hay controversia sobre la manera en la cual se está haciendo, porque este tema ha sido ligado con otros temas que no tienen absolutamente nada que ver con el huracán.
All right, guys, we're going to actually switch out of that, come out of Florida, and I'm going to get Fitz over here. You guys see him with me in the mornings because we want to chat some politics, because I want to talk about this really quickly. Right now, this morning, I'm going to give you a shot of this because she's speaking right now, but Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos is speaking at Antonin Scalia Law School at George Mason right now. There were protesters gathering before her speech this morning. It's a speech about enforcement of rules on how colleges govern and deal with, investigate sexual assaults on campus. Fitz, you were kind of chattering about this morning.
Hey.
Hey. There he is.
Chattering?
We heard you had a little pitch about this.
Now?
Yeah, this is her speaking. We can bring it up. We'll listen in and then we'll chat about it.
Yeah, let's
All right.
what she has to say.
Navigate. Where does that leave institutions, which are forced to be judge and jury? Where does that leave parents? Where does that leave students? This system, failed system, has generated hundreds upon hundreds of cases in the department's Office for Civil Rights, mostly filed by students who reported sexual misconduct and believe their schools let them down. It has also generated dozens upon dozens of lawsuits filed in courts across the land by students punished for sexual misconduct who also believe their schools let them down. The current failed system left one student to fend for herself at a university disciplinary hearing. She told her university that another student sexually assaulted her in her dorm room. In turn, her university told her she would have to prosecute the case herself. Without any legal training whatsoever, she had to prepare an opening statement, fix exhibits, and find witnesses. I don't think it's the rape that makes a person a victim, she told reporters. She said it's the failure of the system that turns a survivor into a victim. This is the current reality. You may have read recently about a disturbing case in California. It's the story of an athlete, his girlfriend, and the failed system. The couple was described as playfully roughhousing, but a witness thought otherwise, and the incident was reported to the university's Title IX coordinator. The young woman repeatedly assured campus officials she had not been abused, nor had any misconduct occurred. But because of the failed system, university administrators told her they knew better. They dismissed the young man, her boyfriend, from the football team and expelled him from school. When I told the truth, the young woman said, I was stereotyped and was told I must be a battered woman, and that made me feel demeaned and absurdly profiled. This is the current reality. Another student at a different school saw her rapist go free. He was found responsible by the school, but in doing so, the failed system denied him due process. He sued the school, and after several appeals in civil court, he walked free. This is the current reality. A student on another campus is under a Title IX investigation for a wrong answer on a quiz. The question asked the name of the class lab instructor. The student didn't know the instructor's name, so he made one up, Sarah Jackson, which unbeknownst to him turned out to be the name of a model. He was given a 0 and told that his answer was inappropriate because it allegedly objectified the female instructor. He was informed that his answer, quote, meets the Title IX definition of sexual harassment. His university opened an investigation without any complainants. This is the current reality. I also think of a student I met who honorably served our country in the Navy and wanted to continue his education after his service. But he didn't know the first thing about higher education. He Googled how to apply to college and applied to one nearby, an HBCU. He was accepted and became the first in his family to attend college. The student told me that as graduation approached, his grandmother beamed with pride. She'd already purchased a flight and picked out her Sunday best for the occasion. But 3 weeks before his graduation, he saw his future dashed. This young man was suspended via a campus-wide email which declared him to be a threat to the campus community. When he tried to learn the reason for his suspension, he was barred from campus. He was not afforded counsel by the college and couldn't afford counsel himself. Eventually, he found a lawyer who submitted a Freedom of Information Act request pro bono, but would do no more. Only through the FOIA was he able to discover he had been accused of sexual harassment, but he was still denied notice of the specific allegations, and he remained suspended. This young man was denied due process. Despondent and without options or hope, after 5 years of sobriety, he relapsed and attempted to take his own life. He felt he had let down everyone who mattered to him, including, most of all, his grandmother, who was so much looking forward to seeing the first member of her family don cap and gown. Whatever your accusers say you are, he told me, is what people believe you are. That is the current reality. Here's what it looks like. A student says he or she was sexually assaulted by another student on campus. If he or she isn't urged to keep quiet or discouraged from reporting it to local law enforcement, the case goes to a school administrator who will act as the judge and jury. The accused may or may not be told of the allegations before a decision is rendered. If there is a hearing, both the survivor and the accused may or may not be allowed legal representation. Whatever evidence is presented may or may not be shown to all parties. Whatever witnesses, if allowed to be called, may or may not be cross-examined. And Washington dictated that schools must use the lowest standard of proof. And now this campus official, who may or may not have any legal training in adjudicating sexual misconduct, is expected to render a judgment that changes the direction of both students' lives. The right to appeal may or may not be available to either party, and no one is permitted to talk about what went on behind closed doors. It's no wonder so many call these proceedings kangaroo courts. Washington's push to require schools to establish these quasi-legal structures to address sexual misconduct comes up far too short for far too many students. The current system hasn't won widespread support, nor has it inspired confidence in its so-called judgments. The results of the current approach? Everyone loses. Some suggest that this current system, while imperfect, at least protects survivors and thus must remain untouched. But the reality is, it doesn't even do that. Survivors aren't well served when they are re-traumatized with appeal after appeal because the failed system failed the accused. And no student should be forced to sue their way to due process. A system is not fair when the only students who can navigate it are those whose families can afford to buy good lawyers, or any lawyer at all. No school or university should deprive any student of his or her ability to pursue their education because the school fears shaming by or loss of funding from Washington. For too long, rather than engage the public on controversial issues, the department's Office for Civil Rights has issued letters from the desks of unelected and unaccountable political appointees. In doing so, these appointees failed to comply with basic legal requirements that ensure our so-called fourth branch of government does not run amok. Unfortunately, school administrators tell me it has run amok. The Office for Civil Rights has terrified schools, one said. Another said that no school feels comfortable calling the department for simple advice, for fear of putting themselves on the radar and inviting an investigation. One university leader was rightly appalled when he was asked by an Office for Civil Rights official, "Why do you care about the rights of the accused?" Instead of working with schools on behalf of students, the prior administration weaponized the Office for Civil Rights to work against schools and against students. One administrator summed this up clearly when he told me his staff should be forward-looking advocates for how to stop sexual misconduct. Instead, he said they've been forced to be backward-looking data collectors to meet the department's demands. Faculty from the University of Pennsylvania's law school also voiced grave concerns about the current approach. They wrote, and I quote, "It exerts improper pressure upon universities to adopt procedures that do not afford fundamental fairness. Too often," they wrote, "outrage at heinous crimes becomes a justification for shortcuts in processes." Ultimately, they concluded, there is nothing inconsistent with a policy that both strongly condemns and punishes sexual misconduct and ensures a fair adjudicatory process. These professors are right. The failed system imposed policy by political letter, without even the most basic safeguards to test new ideas with those who know this issue all too well. Rather than inviting everyone to the table, the department insisted it knew better than those who walk side by side with students every day. That will no longer be the case. The era of rule by letter is over. Through intimidation and coercion, the failed system has clearly pushed schools to overreach. With the heavy hand of Washington tipping the balance of her scale, the sad reality is that Lady Justice is not blind on campuses today. This unraveling of justice is shameful. It's wholly un-American, and it is anathema to the system of self-governance to which our founders pledged their lives over 240 years ago. There must be a better way forward. Every survivor of sexual misconduct must be taken seriously. Every student accused of sexual misconduct must know that guilt is not predetermined. These are non-negotiable principles. Any failure to address sexual misconduct on campus fails all students. Any school that refuses to take seriously a student who reports sexual misconduct is one that discriminates. And any school that uses a system biased toward finding a student responsible for sexual misconduct also commits discrimination. A better way begins with a reframing. This conversation has too often been framed as a contest between men and women, or the rights of sexual misconduct survivors and the due process rights of accused students. The reality is, however, a different picture. There are men and women, boys and girls who are survivors, and there are men and women, boys and girls who are wrongfully accused. I've met them personally. I've heard their stories. And the rights of one person can never be paramount to the rights of another. A better way means that due process is not an abstract legal principle only discussed in lecture halls. Due process is the foundation of any system of justice that seeks a fair outcome. Due process either protects everyone or it protects no one. The notion that a school must diminish due process rights to better serve the victim only creates more victims. A better way also means we shouldn't demand anyone become something they are not. Students, families, school administrators are generally not lawyers and they're not judges. We shouldn't force them to be so for justice to be served. A better way is also being more precise in the definition of sexual misconduct. Schools have been compelled by Washington to enforce ambiguous and incredibly broad definitions of assault and harassment. Too many cases involve students and faculty who have faced investigation and punishment simply for speaking their minds or teaching their classes. Any perceived offense can become a full-blown Title IX investigation. But if everything is harassment, then nothing is. Punishing speech protected by the First Amendment trivializes actual harassment. It teaches students the wrong lesson about the importance of free speech in our democracy. Harassment codes which trample speech rights derail the primary mission of a school to pursue truth. A better way is ultimately about recognizing that schools exist first and foremost to educate. Their core obligation under Title IX is to ensure all students can pursue their education free of discrimination. Schools tend to do a good job, as they should, of making appropriate accommodations that don't infringe on the rights of others. While a Title IX complaint is pending, schools usually make academic accommodations such as adjusting schedules, changing dorm assignments, and postponing papers or exams. But there is a fundamental difference between making these sorts of accommodations for accusers and schools which seek to punish the accused before a fair decision has been rendered. There is a competency gap here. Washington has insisted that schools step into roles that go beyond the mission of these institutions. This doesn't mean schools don't have a role. They do. But we should also draw on medical professionals, counselors, clergy, and law enforcement for their expertise. And so a better way includes pursuing alternatives that assist schools in achieving justice for all students. In order to ensure that America's schools employ clear, equitable, just, and fair procedures that inspire trust and confidence, we will launch a transparent notice and comment process to incorporate the insights of all parties in developing a better way. We will seek public feedback and combine institutional knowledge, professional expertise, and the experiences of students to replace the current approach with a workable, effective, and fair system. To implement sustainable solutions, institutions must be mindful of the rights of every student. No one benefits from a system that does not have the public's trust. Not survivors, not accused students, and not institutions, nor the public. Other groups have already made progress on these difficult issues. The American Bar Association established a task force comprised of lawyers and advocates from diverse backgrounds and varying perspectives. They found consensus and offered substantive ideas on how we can do better. Schools should find their recommendations useful. The American College of Trial Lawyers also gathered experts from across the country to produce reasonable responses to the current failed system. An open letter from Harvard's law school faculty provides important perspectives and insights that will be helpful as we pursue a better way. Another promising idea comes from two former prosecutors, Gina Smith and Leslie Gomez.
Okay, guys, so as she speaks, we're here with Fitz, our regular, you know him. All right, let's talk about this. So we were kind of chatting about this morning. I know, we're just hearing from our Vox Box on what's coming up next. What is Betsy DeVos saying here? We got some alerts during the speech. We were kind of
well, what
watching
this is this was a speech this morning where the Trump administration was going to change.
I'm sorry, that Senate vote is coming on ELC2. The source is C-SPAN. You cannot stream this on your social media platform.
Just some stuff coming in, guys.
ELC2 is tape playing back now.
Is it better to talk over
Yeah,
that?
well, whatever, either way.
All right. So what this is Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, she goes over to Arlington, Virginia today. This is the George Mason University. It is the Antonin Scalia School of Law. This law school had its name changed last year. There were a number of conservative benefactors who provided a gift to the university, and in exchange for that, the name of the law school was changed to the Antonin Scalia School of Law. Now, what this was about today was about Title IX. Now, years ago, people would know Title IX for basically sports.
Women in sports.
It was a way, and it was a ruling that was going to, no pun intended here, because this was how this catchphrase started, level the playing field. When you hear people say level the playing field,
it came from that?
It really came from the Title IX, because basically what you wanted was to make sure that boys and girls had equal access to the same types of opportunity. Over the years, Title IX has changed, and it's changed a lot. And one of the ways it has changed now in 2017 is that under the Obama administration, there were letters sent out to universities that Title IX protections were extended to many different types of campus and school life. One of the most controversial ones right now are campus sexual assault. From the conservatives' viewpoint, they see a letter that was sent by the Obama administration as unfair, because the reason they say it is unfair is because it allows colleges and universities to, in effect, declare someone's guilt or innocence before they had a chance to actually have a legal course of action through the courts. If you were accused of a sexual assault on some campuses, you could be removed from that university for being accused. What the Trump administration, what many conservatives don't like about that, is because they believe that that puts too much authority, too much power in the hands of colleges, institutions, and academics who traditionally tend to be on the more liberal, progressive side of the spectrum. What Secretary DeVos said this morning in her speech that's still going on right now, was that the end of the era of trial by letter is over. So
that meaning
that in this new policy, and they're going to be doing a review, colleges and universities are probably, as a result of this decision today, going to be more restricted in how they can deal with individuals who are accused of sexual harassment, or in some cases have violated policies that the campuses and the administrations of those universities have set up. So it's going to be harder for colleges and universities to enact their own rules upon individuals before those individuals had had a chance to defend themselves in the courts.
And there's a quick wide shot of what it looks like in there
so it looks
as
like
we
the
speak over this. Leslie's jumping up.
I should also tell you, though, that outside of this building right now, we know that there are about 24 protesters that had turned out who are protesting Betsy DeVos, this decision, and her appearance here today. They are campus and women's activists. They say that this is a wrong move in their viewpoint, because they say that this is sticking up for people who they view as sexual predators. So out on the street right now, outside of this very pleasant scene that you see here of people shaking hands and congratulating her now as the speech wraps up. There's another scene that is going on outside that is not so friendly.
Right, and that's to be expected, I think, at a university, obviously, right? With any of these things.
Yeah, and particularly, let's not forget the reason, the location of this was selected. This wasn't an accident. They very easily could have had this.
And I didn't know why, but
They very easily could have had this announcement. They very easily could have had this speech at the Department of Education. There was a large auditorium there. I've been in it. I've been in it with her, and it was perfectly fine to accommodate a crowd like this and invite in whoever you want. The reason they had this over there was to send a message that this school is the living legacy now of Antonin Scalia, the most conservative Supreme Court justice in our memory, who passed away. And this is a signal to conservatives politically across this country that this administration is following through on a lot of the concerns that the people had on the conservative side about the direction that the Education Department under President Obama and under the former Secretary of Education that took under the Obama administration, which a lot of people on the conservative side saw as too overreaching, too intrusive, and too quick to pass judgment on people before they had a chance to get their due process in the courts.
Let us know what you guys think. I know some of you guys are watching on YouTube and chatting in the box with me. I was reading AP reporting, one of the signs said Donald Trump supports Betsy DeVos, supports perpetrators. So just kind of a little tidbit of what it might look like outside that room. Also today, guys, President Trump is meeting with the Kuwaiti leader. That's sort of the Trump news.
Did you had that?
Yeah, we did. We had a live shot of them greeting each other, but then that'll be later.
There's going to be a news conference later on today.
1:30 or so.
Kuwait obviously is a very important player, although we don't talk about them as much as we used to back in the early '90s. A lot of the involvement our country has right now in the Middle East, over the last 27 years, sprung out of then Saddam Hussein, the ruler of Iraq, invading Kuwait, and that's when George H.W. Bush launched the coalition in the early 90s, which led to the first Gulf War. Since that time, obviously, a lot has happened. 9/11 has happened. The war in Iraq was begun. The ISIS situation in that country continues to be of concern. We are still involved in Afghanistan. So it's interesting now to see 27 years later, the leader of Kuwait, who is not only a very strategic military partner for us militarily in the United States, but also from an energy standpoint, as far as the fact that Kuwait is a major oil producer in that region of the country, and that is always part of the concern when you're dealing with anything that has to do with the Arab Street or Middle East politics. That dual role of both their military significance and their energy production and what they mean from an energy standpoint for the United States. So this is a very important meeting, although it's probably not going to get the kind of press that, say, a meeting with the Russian Prime Minister, or the Russian President would get. But still, Kuwait is a stable country in that region of the area where there's a lot of instability going on right now.
Speaking of Russian stuff, what you're going to be talking about something else tonight. Let's talk about what you're covering today.
Well, it's back to the Russia investigation.
Did you guys see this, the Facebook thing?
We kind of took a break from it for a couple of weeks because Congress left town. But the work continued. There was a lot that went on in August. I don't think that they folded up their tents and just, went to the beach for a month. Some of the highlights were the fact that we learned that Robert Mueller, who's the special counsel in the Russia investigation, had and has presented evidence now to a grand jury in regards to his investigation. That has been reported to be information in regards to Paul Manafort, who was the former campaign chairman of the Trump 2016 presidential campaign. We know now this morning that Donald Trump Jr. has appeared before a panel of United States Senate investigators. Now, this was not the public hearing, but this was a panel of Senate staffers who posed questions to Donald Trump Jr. And the core of the questions are over this meeting that we now know about at Trump Tower, where Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, and others, including Jared Kushner, met with a attorney, a Russian attorney, who initially had said that they thought they were going to talk about Russian adoptions, and then that story changed, and that became, we have dirt on Hillary Clinton. Of course, Donald Trump Jr. released those emails.
Yeah, this is a breakdown of the steps.
Love it.
Everything.
Yeah, because, you know,
there's so much that transpired one to the other.
Yeah, so, you know, for 4 weeks, we really haven't talked as much about this, and a lot has gone on. So, you know, then the question in the last week became this revelation that apparently the Trump organization was pursuing a Trump tower in Russia prior to the launch of the president's presidential campaign. So that raises more questions about the level to which the Russian government had interest in Donald Trump's organization and business dealings, and what level of collusion, if any, were there between the Trump campaign and Russia. Now we have this other thing with Facebook today.
Did we see it last night? It came out, or
yeah,
what?
late last evening.
Late last night.
There apparently is now evidence that Facebook is reporting that about $100,000 in advertisements were taken out from entities connected to Russia. Now, these were not campaign ads in the traditional sense. They're what we call issue ads. But they were issue ads, sort of, if you look at it, what it was, designed to poke at the American consciousness. So you would have, you know, an ad that was pro-gay rights,
something about values,
that was
right?
Anti-gay rights. You would have an ad that was pro-civil rights, and then you would have an ad that was anti-civil rights. So preliminarily, the evidence suggests is that there may have been a coordinated campaign from some entities in Russia to poke and prod at the American people as this campaign was moving forward last fall and into the election itself. So
that's what you're looking into.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is, you know, because Mark Zuckerberg, who runs Facebook, was asked about this last year. And I think at the time, his remark was that it would be ludicrous to think that Russia would somehow be involved in any of this. Which
that was his answer? I wasn't sure if he just sort of like exited out Facebook from being
remember,
involved.
Facebook was very slow to accept the notion that there was fake news showing up on their platform.
Yeah.
And, you know, they struggled with this. And I think in a lot of ways they're still struggling with this. At what point do you pull something from your platform that, I guess you deal with this as well too.
Yeah.
You know, at what point do you pull something from your platform based upon the idea that it is fake, intentionally fake? Is it satire?
Right.
Is it someone's opinion? Is it someone's humorous take on something? So the problem with this is that there's, depending on what you look at, who looks at it and through what prism they look at, and their political makeup, their religious makeup, their racial makeup, you can have 3 different people look at something and see 3 different things. And, you know, Facebook has now installed these tools where you can report something as fake news. You can block something. There are more things that are available to you as a Facebook platform user. But they've not solved this. And especially when it comes to their advertising scheme, certainly if you have $100,000 in ads that were taken out, and you're only now just understanding where those ads came from and why they came from, there's also not only scrutiny going to put on the users, the members who make up Facebook, but also who Facebook itself is doing business with in regards to selling these ads, and what kind of control they have on their own business model as to making sure that ads that are appearing on their platform are truthful and with some kind of direction that don't have any ill-gotten means against the United States.
So Donald Trump Jr. connection to all this, back in the news today, that's what you're going to be kind of focusing on today?
Yeah, we're going to be up on the Hill. We are going to be talking about what Donald Trump Jr. had to say to Senate investigators. And we're also going to be, looking as well at this question about Facebook and these $100,000 of ads that apparently Facebook is now saying came from somewhere in Russia.
What could
tied this to the Russian government? They've not tied this to anybody in the Trump campaign. The Trump administration continues to insist there was no collusion. Donald Trump Jr. at one point said he had trouble colluding with his own offices at times.
Right.
So how could they have pulled this off? But they have not bent from that position at all. They still insist that there was nothing going on between the Trump campaign and the Russian government or any Russian entities. However, he still had to go up to the Senate today. He still had to answer the questions about this Russian meeting, and he still had very good questions about his own emails that he released to this Russian attorney, saying that the prospect of getting dirt on Hillary Clinton was something that Donald Trump Jr., quote, loved it.
What's the worst that could happen to Facebook if all of this pans out, if it comes to pass that did happen? I mean, anything?
Worse in terms of penalties against them, or what's in terms of public relations?
Public relations different, but reputation?
I mean, I would think at the very least it would be out of the question that Mark Zuckerberg or somebody from Facebook is going to have to sit before a Senate or a House committee at some point and answer some questions about where they are getting their ad money from and what their role in distributing some of this material is. Because, if you're going to start looking and you're going to start peeling back layers of these campaigns and, where advertising is coming from, where money is coming from, a lot like in our television universe right now, you can't leave social media platforms out of this conversation.
Yep. Got them all everywhere at our fingertips.
So
That's what we're doing.
I would be surprised if it does not at some point have some hard questions either for Facebook or Twitter or any other media platform that's out there. Do you know who you were doing business with, and do you know why they are doing business with you?
Interesting stuff. Always awesome to have. You got to go out in your story soon, right? So you're going to be.
Oh. Yeah.
He gets caught up.
I gotta
he
go.
loves hanging out in the digital.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, for watching this, and thanks, Fitz, for contributing.
Okay, we'll talk tomorrow.
Always awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
No, we won't talk tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow.
Oh, you're off.
We'll see you Sunday morning.
He'll be
7
be
o'clock.
around on Sunday.
All right.
We'll see you next week on the
I'm
show.
going to do my slide move out here.
All right. I like that effect. All right, we're going to talk a little more sports, too. I'm going to get Brody down here when he's around, because it's season opener for NFL tonight. I'm super excited. Guys, if you're on the chat, I'm just going to check in with some of your comments. Let me know what you're thinking. I hope the sound is fixed. I wasn't sure if it was still delayed. Right now we have a live look inside the Senate floor. They're voting on some hurricane funding, but I don't know. It's sort of ongoing, so it's sort of a stagnant shot there. Also a live look at our Capitol Dome here in D.C. Actually, this is a clearer shot. There it is. Clear, sunny shot. Supposed to be beautiful today. And we'll take it. I'll leave you there for 1 second. We'll come back to you in the newsroom. Okay, guys, we're back in the newsroom. Did you hear about this story? I want to show this because it's pretty interesting. We brought it up this morning in our editorial meeting. There was a 15-year-old girl in Minnesota who was found after 29 days of being held in captivity. And according to police, she was treated for minor injuries when she was found, and she was reunited with her family. But the craziest thing is that police arrested 3 people, 3 men in connection with this who were said to allegedly have kept her hostage and I think abused her and raped her. This is in Alexandria, Minnesota. And this morning there was an update and press conference on what happened and how she's doing. But this is just a wild story, and I didn't want to sort of overlook it because it's something that you can't really believe would happen sort of in the community like that. And I'm going to show you the latest update from it. But basically, like I said, 15-year-old girl, I don't know the details exactly on how she got out, but her name was Jasmine, 15 years old. Check out this press conference here just moments ago about how they got these guys and what exactly happened.
The 3 men are on the board up there. Thomas Barker, age 32, from Carlos, Minnesota. Stephen Powers, age 20, from Mankato. And Joshua Holby, 31, also of Carlos. Specific charges will be determined over the course of the next few days by the Douglas County Attorney's Office. This remains an ongoing investigation, and we're still learning many details about what happened. We're asking farmers in Grant County, Polk County, and Douglas County to check their cornfields for damages associated with a vehicle driving through them. We want to identify the specific fields through which they drove with Ms. Block. We're also asking anglers at Thompson Lake to report any clothing located or floating in or on the shoreline. Jasmine lost her shoes and her pants while she swam in that lake. And lastly, we ask that you respect the family's privacy during this extreme and difficult time. The agencies involved in this is lengthy, but it's important to note that we take partnerships incredibly important and a key foundation to solving crimes of this nature. The agencies involved in this investigation, besides the Alexandria Police Department, are Douglas County Sheriff's Office, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the FBI, also a Federal Bureau of Investigation, the West Central Minnesota Drug Task and the West Central Minnesota Drug and Violent Crime Task Force, the Minnesota Department of Corrections, the Minnesota State Patrol, Polk County Sheriff's Office, Grant County Sheriff's Office, Glenwood Police Department, Alexandria Fire Department, LifeLink, North Ambulance, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, the Otter Tail County SWAT Team, and North Star Search and Rescue. With that said, I'll open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
Do you have any details on the nature of the assault that happened on that farm when she was being held? Was it just physical, or can you get more elaborate than that?
It was both physical assault and sexual assault.
How did you find your 3 suspects yesterday if she had kind of gotten away from her place of captivity?
So the suspects are probably trying, I'm assuming some of these, by the way, everything I just told you is something that we believe. This is an active investigation and still going on. Everything is subject to be different when the final story is told. With that point stated, the suspects were in search of a place to hide their identity, we believe. And so they're in rural Grant County, staying in cornfields and wooded areas. And they had Ms. Block with her the entire time. And I'm not sure if I answered your question, but if not, go ahead again.
The aftermath, though, she calls 911, you get word, you get your, law enforcement to her, but now it's, where do we find the 3 suspects? How did you track them down yesterday?
Very good. It's also an interesting part of the story. So Ms. Block escapes, runs to the farmer's location. He takes her into the security of his vehicle, gets the story told to him by the victim, and decides that the best place for him, because now he's intimidated or scared for his own safety, that he's going to take this young victim to a local community of Elbow Lake. Well, he's either on his way or he's there. I don't have that determined at this moment. She actually identifies one of the vehicles that had been involved with her, which was being driven by, I believe, Mr. Stephen Powers. Is that correct? And Mr. Powers was arrested. Matter of fact, he's on the phone with the dispatchers talking about the 911 dispatchers talking about what's happening. When this woman or this victim identifies the vehicle, they summons police and get him stopped and arrested. That leaves two other people, the two other suspects at large, and we believe that they're together, which in the end turned out to be that they were together. We knew what they were driving. We put out a search notice to all local law enforcement, actually statewide. A trooper down by Glenwood spotted their vehicle, in which they were stopped shortly thereafter and arrested at a residence in Glenwood.
Chief, can you talk about the heroism of the young woman escaping?
Unbelievable young woman. We are all proud of her on behalf of the police department, all the emergency response people. It's an amazing story when you have something like this happen. They become a part of a very close family. She's an amazing woman with a lot of strength, young lady with a lot of strength. We think a lot of her family. Her mom was strong through this whole time and consistent and never gave up. Amazing people. And the victim is now safe with her mother. And we're all of us in this community are proud of her. And this became a community event. You know, this is about Jasmine. This is about her family. And this is about our community. And it's with the work that happened, working together as a community and as a family, building partnerships and relationships with all of these people that made the information fly around in a trusting fashion. So when this farmer saw this young lady, he was able to name her before she was able to even say any words because he knew exactly what this story was all about. And so it's just a perfect example of what it's like to be transparent, to be out there, to work with you folks as well, to help share that information, to make sure that the right thing can happen, and that was to bring Jasmine home safely.
Chief, if you can touch on why they focus on specific.
The first suspect, Thomas Barker, was a previous acquaintance with their neighborhood and of her. So she knew him. And not like regularly knew him, but knew of him, and it was an acclimated, or familiar is the word I'm looking for, of his vehicle. When he approached their house in a friendly way with his vehicle, she recognized his vehicle, as in the audio of how it sounded. Keep in mind, it's the middle of the night. She leaves her house, goes sees what Mr. Barker wanted, and I'll use the word, he tricked her. He tricked her into saying that he would like her to come and help with a family situation. And Jasmine was already familiar with the other family members who did not live with him in that neighborhood. She's thinking it's trusting and honest. She goes, I'll just go with you right now. So she gets in the car, except for he takes her to Carlos and ties her up.
Chief, the suspects, do they know each other? Any previous arrests? How are these three tied together?
So the suspects, Thomas Barker and Joshua Holby, lived together out in Carlos. Suspect Stephen Powers from Mankato is a previous known friend to Mr. Barker. He coincidentally came up for a visit a week or so into this and became a part of it.
I'm sorry, Chief, which two lived together?
Mr. Thomas Barker and Mr. Joshua Holby. I'd like to go over here. Yes?
Did they say why they targeted her?
No one has stated why they targeted her specifically. Yes, ma'am.
Have any reason to believe that they're involved in any other conspiracy cases or abductions in the area?
We sure hope not. As a matter of fact, I'm not even familiar with another missing or abducted case in the area. We don't believe that there are other victims that are part of their story right now. And we also, obviously, they're in custody. We don't believe that the public as a whole is at any risk. I got to tell you, I come from a simple life, and to understand human mind to that capacity is something I couldn't even get close to.
Chief, were they feeding her?
They did feed her. She did not starve her. They did feed her food, various things, from Taco Bell to fast food, different things from time to time. I don't know about how regular or anything of those natures. They did keep her in a secure part of the house where she couldn't leave, in the back part of the house, oftentimes in a closet.
And always
Not always tied up. Nope. Mostly in the beginning, we believe, although many of those details we're still working on. Somebody over here has had their hand up, and I keep ignoring you, not on purpose. Joe, I got my naivety's kicking in. Two of them I know for sure do, and I was working on that right before this. I got sidetracked, and I didn't get to the third one. Two of these people have some criminal history, not things like this.
Just again to catch up, the Carlos house where she was, restrained and held is Barker's home.
I'm not sure Barker owns it or whether his roommate owns it, but they live there together.
That's their main residence.
That's
their
correct.
home.
The best that I know, that's correct.
And is it a rural home when neighbors have not seen this arrival?
I guess I'm going to ask Detective Gunther that information.
It's a home in Carlos. It's a mobile home. There are neighbors. Like the chief said, it's an ongoing investigation, so obviously there's canvassing and other things to do, asking and talking to neighbors, but it's close enough like it needs to be.
Chief, understanding the family's privacy, can you talk a little bit about the reunion with Jasmine and the family?
Well, thank you for bringing that up because that's the positive part of this story, right? There's nothing more reassuring to my career path of 34 years when you have an opportunity to watch a young daughter and their mother reunite and celebrate something that's tragic as this. And it's a beautiful time. You'll find your own emotions come at play. It's the best part of the story. It's a happy ending. The work isn't done. This family is going to need a lot of privacy and a lot of public and community support to continue on.
You described that physical exchange when they met.
Well, it's beautiful. It's love at its capacity, right?
Chief, can you believe the details of this case kind of came together before the last 24 hours?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable in the world that I live. In Alexandria, we have a great community. We have crime here. We have situations and events here. We have serious crimes here from time to time. But something of this nature is really the reason you are all here, because it's just unbelievable to all you as well. And I would imagine the general public would feel the same way. Why does a human being do this? There's no explanation.
Chief, I heard there was some sort of a drug aspect or a drug investigation into this. Can you speak to how that impacted the fur being taken, or is there any sort of drug motivation behind that?
Well, I'm gonna kind of generically offer that up, not to be cryptic, but I'll be a little bit. Some of the drug stories are still under investigation on there, but I think the piece that you're asking about was there drugs involved to get her into the car and that first initial point? Still under investigation, but that wouldn't be the primary motivation that we're aware of. There may have been drugs involved from time to time through this particular event. Obviously, it went on for 4 weeks. However, I don't know that specifically your question that the drugs and the initial take was part of the story. If no one else has any questions, I thank you all for being here. Our efforts at the Alexandria Police Department is twofold today. To be transparent with you and the community, and to be thorough as we can be with the information that we have without disrupting the investigation and the proper format going forward. And so we will bring our partners, the prosecution involved in this kind of thing, and let due process do its piece. Your law enforcement community has all gone home, and we're not all done. As a matter of fact, we're just continuing to build the puzzle. And we're going to put all the pieces together that we possibly can. Because we're representing Jasmine, and our work is not done, even though she's united with her mother. We want to make sure that the story is factual, accurate, consistent, and due process can do what it's supposed to do in our country.
Are these three in your Douglas County Jail, or are they still spread out?
They're all, to my knowledge, at least earlier, a few hours ago, for sure we're all in Douglas County Jail. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
All right, guys, so a super tragic, really sad story, but a happy ending that the girl, Jasmine, has now been located. She was a teenager who was missing for almost a month. And it really just a crazy story coming out of Alexandria, Minnesota, so not this area, DMV. If you guys are on the stream, welcome, and thanks for watching inside our newsroom. Our little fisheye camera giving you a glimpse of our assignment desk and what's going on today. It's a little quiet in the lunch hour, but we're here to bring you whatever live streams that we have coming in, including this live look inside the Senate floor. We haven't seen that for quite a bit because they've been obviously in recess and nothing much really happening, but now we're back. And shortly, guys, we're going to go over to the White House right here, where President Trump is meeting with the Kuwaiti leader, and I may attempt to say his name. I may butcher it. But yeah, I'll attempt to say his name when it comes on. So joint press conference there. And also coming up, we're going to chat about NFL season opener. If anybody's excited about football, it's definitely me and probably some of you. So let me know who your team is in the chat, and we can chat about it. We're going to have a couple experts coming down to join us to talk about it.
Much appreciated. We have many things to discuss, including trade and military, but many things. We had a short but very good meeting individually, and we look forward to having this luncheon, and I know we have meetings all throughout the day and tomorrow, and we look forward to that. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. For the media, the so far results of the hurricane are not looking particularly good for Florida. It's heading very much in that direction. We are very well covered from the standpoint of bravery and talent. We have tremendous people there representing us, from the Coast Guard to FEMA to everybody else. I've spoken to Governor Scott on numerous occasions, and they likewise are very well prepared. But the amount of wind that's coming in, we don't think we've seen anything quite like this one, 185 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour. We don't think we've seen anything quite like this. Some of the winds have gotten up to close to 200 miles an hour. So to the people of Florida, we just want you to protect yourselves, be very, very vigilant and careful. Again, the governor's working very hard. FEMA, the Coast Guard, all of our people are very well prepared. We're going to be knowing pretty soon, you know where it is. We have a pretty good accuracy as to path, but unfortunately, we'll be knowing pretty soon. Hopefully, we'll have some good news. That's what we're waiting for, is good news. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. President, long-term deal with Senator Schumer on the debt ceiling, permanent deal. Do you want that? Do you want that,
Yeah,
Mr.
there'll
President?
never be a problem on that. Nobody would ever do anything with that. We had a great meeting yesterday with Nancy Pelosi and Senator Schumer, and it was a very bipartisan meeting. We could have done a longer deal, but that would have affected the military, as you know, so we really kept it for 3 months because of the military. We have a great respect for the sanctity of the debt ceiling, and Chuck does, and Nancy does, and we all do. So that will never be a problem. Debt ceiling will never be a problem. We would have done a one-year deal. We could have done a one-year deal, but we couldn't do it for one reason. It's called the military. We need the flexibility, especially in these times. And we're looking at major military. I was just telling the Emir that we're increasing the military purchases in this country by many, many billions of dollars. New fighter jets, new ships, things that we need, things that should have been bought over the last 10 years. We're making up for it. We have the finest military equipment in the world, and we're now the biggest of all buyers. So we're strengthening very substantially our military. But we couldn't have done a longer deal than the 90 days because of the military and because of the fact that we all wanted to have it all in one package. I did, but we all wanted to have it in one package. So I thought it was a really good. Mike was with me, our vice president, and we had Mike, you may want to say something about it, but I thought it was a very, very friendly. It was a meeting that we all wanted to get together and do something. And I think the primary reason was because you look at North Korea, you look at the hurricanes, you look at what's going on in the Middle East. And I said, frankly, it's time that we walk out and shake hands and have a deal. And they agreed. And I will tell you, it was there was a lot of spirit in that room, a lot of good spirit. But the reason we have the 90 days, which will, I believe, quite easily extend, but certainly we will extend on the debt ceiling because they understand the importance of debt ceiling. That's really a sacred trust.
Do you want to get rid of that vote process entirely, Mr. President?
Well, I think that, it could be discussed. For many years, people have been talking about getting rid of debt ceiling altogether, and there are a lot of good reasons to do that. So certainly that's something that will be discussed. We even discussed it at the meeting that we had yesterday. It complicates things. It's really not necessary because you're talking about budget, so it's really not necessary. But it's certainly something we could discuss. But as long as it's there, it will never be violated. Okay? Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Awesome. So that was President Trump earlier. That was a little tape playback inside the White House with the Vice President. So he's coming up shortly with the Kuwaiti leader, and I can't say his name because I'm going to butcher it, but I really want to talk to Brody because we have him here in studio, our sports guy. We're talking NFL season opener tonight.
NFL season opener tonight.
Regular season. Oh, and I have a hurricane up too because we're going to talk about that too.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Let's take us first.
I am a Miami Hurricane. I'm a Miami. So,
I know, that's right. Okay, he went to the U.
That works out. No, season opener tonight.
There's Twitter.
Chiefs and Patriots.
Yeah.
The Patriots are like a 9-point favorite by the people in the desert, the experts in the desert. But yeah, I mean, regular season's here.
Yeah.
Bigger thing, Redskins play this Sunday on Fox 5 against the Eagles. Pre-game show, 7:30 a.m. Redskins game time. So you're up early, put coffee on the pot, and get ready for a long day of football. With me, Grant Paulson, Ken Harvey.
Yeah. How long is that special? You'll be on
for an hour, from 7:30 to 8:30 every Sunday morning from here.
So cool.
Until the Redskins stop being good enough.
Is that the bigger game this Sunday? I mean, is tonight's game? Are any of them really hot contenders? Like.
Oh yeah. So
Patriots, I mean.
Tonight's game.
I'm excited. I'm going out for it.
Yeah.
Duffy's. I'm ready.
Nice.
I know where to go.
So obviously you have the defending champion Patriots. You have the Chiefs that were a playoff team last year, so it should be a very good game, good atmosphere. This weekend, obviously the Redskins game, y'all care about it. It's a division game they're starting off with, which talking to the players out at Redskins Park yesterday.
Oh yeah, I saw some of that. We took some of that footage.
Yeah, they all were like, listen, we only get 6 division games. These games now, or this game Sunday, first game of the season, if you're not ready, you better be ready. Because you only get 6 of these that determine who goes to the playoffs, who wins the division. So they need to come out ready to go. A couple different trends that, depending on how you choose to see it, how you think the team will do. So Kirk Cousins has won every game he's played against the Eagles. The Redskins have won 7 games as a team straight against the Eagles. Kirk Cousins has great performances against. He actually has the best stats of any quarterback in the league against Philadelphia.
That's amazing. Cool stats for him.
The other thing is, the Redskins have not won a season-opening game since 2012, when RG3, his very first game with the Redskins.
I remember that year. I remember that big hype with him
against the Saints. Yeah, so it's been so long since Redskins fans. It's always been this. Yeah.
I know. I'm living in the DMV. If you guys are from there, you guys know.
Yeah, that's what it's been. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, I mean, Jay Gruden has yet to win a season opening game as a head coach.
Wow.
Get that sort of monkey off the back. It'll be a really good game. And then another marquee game of the weekend, Seahawks and Packers.
Okay.
That's also on Fox 5. So that'll be after the Redskins game. That is a huge game. 2 potential Super Bowl contenders.
Absolutely.
Week 1 facing each other on our air.
When I think Seattle and Packers, I think of that famous game, and I can't remember what year it was, where it was like, the Seattle, there was like a blow at the end.
Yeah, so the blown call on the Hail Mary.
Yes. I forgot what year that was, but immediately I'm thinking of that rival.
That might have been a first game of the season, or a Thursday night
crazy,
or something.
Something like that.
Or Monday night. I'm sure someone watching knows.
Someone knows, because I have a good friend, Chris, if you're out there. You're from Milwaukee, but you went to school in Seattle, so you love the Packers, but like you had this thing. I remember it being a big crazy night.
Sports bigamy.
Yes, but okay. So what was the practice like yesterday? Check that out. kind of covered.
Yeah, practice was good. The team is still kind of trying to figure out what to do after. So Sua Cravens, second-year player, set to be the starting safety this year. He's considering retirement at 22 years old. So he's had a varied injury history. He had a bad concussion last year that affected his eyesight, and it really affected him. He had a torn bicep. He had a knee injury this year. He's had a litany of things. Now, we don't know officially why he was considering this. He hasn't said, but...
That's so young.
Right. I mean, we don't know if it was CTE concerns because of concussions, things like that. I personally, just talking to him different times, he's one of those people who, I mean, some guys, they eat, sleep, breathe football. And you kind of have to do that with what these players put their bodies through for their entire careers. You have to mentally prepare yourself to say, I'm sacrificing my health for my livelihood. And I get the sense he's not that type of guy. He's like, you know what? There's more to life than just this game. And his teammates are supportive of him. There were reports that it's kind of divided the locker room and some guys aren't going to welcome him back. Everyone I talk to, on or off the record, they're like, listen, it's a job. It's a great job. We get paid a ton of money to do it. But if you don't want to do the job, you can go find another one. And that's basically, but if he decides, you know what, I do want to do this and come back and be committed, then we'll welcome him back. If not, we totally understand. A lot of fans are bummed because he did this the weekend before the first game of the season, and it doesn't give the team any time to prepare, which I kind of understand, but you need to look. Sometimes as fans, we look at these players as just faceless entities that slam into each other instead of as people.
I really like the human interest aspect of it, that you can kind of draw that out, and you do that a good job with that too.
Thank you. But we need to see that, like, see from his side of, maybe you just don't want to have your body go through 3 car crashes a day, because that's what the effect of these hits are.
And hasn't CTE and that whole thing been in the news lately? There's certain new stuff coming out about what the dangers are.
There have been so many different studies, and then now it's a bit dubious because now the NFL has brought it all in-house. So they were paying an outside group of doctors to run these studies. They kind of didn't like what they saw, so now they brought it in-house, which is a bit worrisome. Actually, today in the 5, I actually pre-taped it. Cool story. This company called Shadow Man. So they have revolutionized tackling dummies.
Okay.
So the tackling dummy, maybe you know from youth football or your kids or high school, what have you, that you just push or slam into, it doesn't move. So these guys they took it from the game of rugby, and it's like a humanoid looking thing, and it sits in a donut that you can pull around, and it moves like a human, and then you run and tackle it. Because the biggest problem with CTE or any football injuries, it's not the one big hit, it's hit after hit after hit after hit, which you get those reps in practice. But the thing is, this way you get the reps like you're tackling a person without tackling a person. And it's pretty cool.
And they can study the effects and what's gonna.
Well, this is more of, now they can, you don't
see the damage, I guess.
Well, it lessens the damage. Like, they already know, so they already know the damage, and this is to take it out of practice, because the bigger thing is just hit after hit after hit. Whereas in the game, you maybe if you have a great game, you have 10 tackles. But if you're doing it in practice, you're doing 20, 30 reps a day for 4 or 5 days a week, you know, especially at the youth level or at high school, college. I mean, so 75 of the 120 Division I programs use this now. The Redskins just signed up with them, because that's how I found out about this, because I saw the Redskins using this. And I think it's a pretty cool product. So we'll be with them in the 5.
That's awesome. So you're on tonight. I'm so happy to have Brody in, because he's never here during the day.
Late.
So I'm really grateful that I can just grab him and talk to you guys.
I had to wake up at the crack of 10 a.m. today. It was crazy.
Specifically because you're doing tonight at 5, or you're working on tonight.
Yep.
Awesome. So you're excited for the season. We're all rolling into football.
Yeah. I mean, I love the NFL, but I am more so a college football guy. So this past weekend was
Speaking of that.
Oh man, I was so happy it was back.
So he went to school in Miami, right?
Yeah.
And this is, we're obviously not trying to delegitimize what this is, but being a Hurricane.
So yeah, I went to University of Miami as a Hurricane, but also grew up in Fort Pierce, like on a barrier island.
Wow, I didn't know that.
In Florida.
Yeah.
And so if there was ever a hurricane within 2 hours of us, we'd have to evacuate.
So you did it a lot. You evacuated
a ton. I got used to, when I was a kid, my mom would just say, pack what you can't replace.
Yeah.
Because insurance can take care of everything else. So we'd go around taking a bunch of pictures of everything in the house, and then I would grab my baseball cards. My
Of
mom,
course,
my
that
mom
was
would,
that era. Oh my
my
God.
mom would grab photo albums, you know, and then we'd go stay with family inland in Orlando.
And that was safe enough to go inland, I guess, and stay.
Yeah. So and it's crazy because I mean, a ton of my friends are still back home. We have a group chat, so I'm talking to
Yeah.
them. They're freaking out. Floridians are so jaded by hurricanes. So where it just happens all the time, and then I mean, I remember being a kid during a tropical storm or a Cat 1.
Right.
We'd go outside and play.
Right. I remember doing that too. And I'm from New England, so totally different. But Hurricane Bob was no joke up there.
Right. And then, but we know
you
when
played
it's-
you'd see the trees fall and you'd kind of jump around, but it's
we
serious.
know when it's legit.
Yeah, and this is.
Yeah, and this is a terrible, terrible storm. But I've even seen people. The cool thing is like everyone's helping each other. I have a friend who he was out helping board up houses for all day yesterday, and he
helping board up and
just doing different. And then but
scary.
It's even like, some people I just don't understand it because it is I guess maybe that jaded hurricane thing. I saw a friend from back home or like a friend of a friend post on Facebook like, oh hey, I think I'm just gonna wait out the storm. Do I need shutters?
I've been,
like, what?
But you know it's serious. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of those too, like memes. Like Floridians are all like, "We're staying here, man.
Right.
Like we're good."
It's like, no, leave. Or then she's like, oh, but I've heard 95 and the turnpike are all backed up. Who cares?
We did see that footage this morning. All the cars
but you'll
coming
get
out.
there eventually.
It's true. And Rick Scott this morning, Governor, we took it live, was saying evacuate wherever you are in Florida. If you're on whatever coast you're on, go.
Listen, and here's the thing, and this is what I say to people all the time. You can replace pretty much everything except for yourself.
Except for baseball cards.
Except for baseball
Those
cards.
are ancient
and your,
vintage.
And your
You can't
body.
replace them.
You can't replace baseball cards.
Those are awesome.
I don't
That's
even
the
know.
best.
I don't even know where they are anymore.
Are they worth anything? Because
No.
quick side note, I used to tell my brother, these will never be worth anything later in life. I was right.
So here's what ended up happening with baseball cards, okay?
Yeah, let's hear this history.
So my dad's generation, or his dad's generation, they would get baseball cards, they didn't care about them, right? They put them in their spokes of the wheels of their bike to make it sound like a motorcycle.
Oh, really?
They would just throw them, they didn't care about them, right? Well, then that means the one kid that did care about them saved a Mickey Mantle card forever. There were no other Mickey Mantle cards, thus
it was rare.
It was
worth
rare.
supply
It
and demand.
became worth a lot of money. So then he said, "Oh, I knew a guy that had a Mickey Mantle card. I put mine in my spokes. You need to save every baseball card you have."
That's crazy.
So then my generation was like, "Oh my God, these things are going to be. Oh my God, it's going to pay for college." So we all saved them.
I remember it.
Thus, way too many, and then more and more baseball companies came in. Upper Deck,
Tops.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That was
Tops.
already.
Tops. Well, Tops was there, but they ended up having like 9 different types.
Yeah, they did.
Upper Deck,
Leaf.
Leaf, Fleer, all these companies.
Fleer. I got this off my brother. I honestly didn't even know. He had a whole thing.
So all
We
these
would
companies
trade
came
them.
in, just way too much supply. So that's why
And then
they're
it became
not.
nothing.
That's why they're not worth anything.
But then you think now with the slow die out, if they're not making them anymore, they'd be supply and demand. We'll see. It might be years
I
to
know.
come.
I just need all of you people to destroy all your baseball cards, and then I need to find mine.
You saved them in the hurricane, so.
Yeah, I did.
Oh my
So the
goodness.
hurricane cards.
You're from the island off of it? You said
Yeah,
Small Island?
Hutchinson Island.
I'm familiar with the name. I can't quite pinpoint.
It's on the East Coast, Treasure Coast of Florida. So when I was in college, I went down to Miami for college, and then 2 hurricanes hit in same area, Charlie and Francis, in the same year. And it was crazy because growing up, we never had a strong hurricane as a direct hit.
Andrew or no?
Andrew was farther south.
Okay.
That was
Caribbean.
1992.
Oh, two.
It decimated Homestead, but we evacuated
Sure.
anyway.
Yeah.
That was very far away. But then Charlie and Francis in the same year, 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. And I remember going back, went back with my mom to like assess the damage. And
wow.
First off, we couldn't get onto the island unless you could prove that you were from there. And it was National Guard with major artillery guarding looters from coming, I guess. And so we get there, and you go in the neighborhood, 2 houses down, the roof would be gone, and most of the structure gone. And then our house, it was like just a few roof shingles and some water damage. It's just...
It's whatever happened, happened. You just dealt with happenstance.
At first it was like, grace be to whatever,
Yeah, thank
or
goodness.
luck, or thank goodness. But what it really ended up happening, and also this is good luck, it was in the same pre-planned community. Some of the places had solid shingles nailed in, others had staples. The ones with staples, the shingles left, the roof left.
Wow. So
it's because with other places they decided to try to save some money on building. Also over the years, just building codes in Florida have gotten so up there. But then also insurance companies dropped out of Florida after a number of hurricanes hit. So then it ended up being hurricane insurance from the state.
My goodness.
Because
they knew.
Well, it's like, I don't know. I don't have a very positive outlook on insurance companies after all this, because once they finally have to pay for something, they don't want to do it. I mean, I guess that's kind of their job.
Right, of course.
You would think after something catastrophic, that's when they're like, yeah, let's go in, let's help.
But cool that you've been in touch with friends that stayed down there and they're kind of talking about what's going on.
And my parents.
They're down there?
Yeah, I talked to my mom yesterday. She lives in Fort Lauderdale now, so even closer to where the storm's supposed to hit.
Right.
She's like, well, me and your stepdad, we're already going to Spain on Thursday. I was like, oh, that's a good place to evacuate to.
Oh, that's perfect. I'll do that.
Don't have to worry about the hurricane in Spain.
Wow. Did they get out, or they already got out? Or
as far as I know,
Wednesday, right?
As long as they didn't. She was hoping the flight didn't get canceled.
I know.
But also, did you see with the different flights?
There's a whole, obviously, we were reading the news controversy about that, and that there were sort of these last-minute flights, but people were upping. The airlines were kind of. This is all over the radio this morning too, but. You know, whether that was like obviously not the right thing to do because these people are in dire straits.
Here's what I think happened. I don't know this. The airlines have had different explanations. If you book any airfare last minute, it's going to be expensive.
Right.
But these prices were
insane.
$1,600, $6,000 from Miami to Denver.
Wow.
Yeah, these are people posting screenshots. I don't think they made them up. But what I think it is that all of these.
A lot.
Airfare companies, they have these algorithms based on time,
you're right,
based on supply and
demand, and
so
then
they see all these people trying to buy flights,
and it just goes.
It automatically goes up. Whereas JetBlue capped all their flights out of 33 airlines at $99.
That's so cool.
In Florida.
I didn't see that headline, but I was wondering which one did that. Southwest maybe too? They're like that. But
JetBlue, and then I saw a few different ones. Most of the major carriers, Delta, American, United, what have you, they have waived fees. But it kind of doesn't matter if your airfare is $6,000.
What's another 30?
I don't know if I can pay that $30 luggage fee. Nope. I draw the line at $7,000.
But bags still fly free with Southwest, so that's a good one. I love it.
But so I don't know. They were catching a lot of flack on social media and just people trying to get out.
I saw that.
I have a lot of family and friends. They're going inland. Or going with other family farther north, because it looks like it's going to go right up through the state, or possibly along the coast. But even if you go north, you're going to get hit by, but you're getting hit by a much weaker storm than the one that's
Carolina. We were talking to Caitlin this morning. She was saying, it's still to be determined, but as it goes north, Carolina's hopefully we'll just see a little remnant of it, some rain, etc.
It was crazy. I was tweeting back and forth with Mike Thomas last night. Because growing up in my
combos.
Growing up in my room, I had the radar cell framed of Andrew when it hit Miami.
Wow.
It was
so
so
cool. Historical.
I was like a weather geek when I was a kid.
Second calling.
Yeah,
weather guy.
Was sports. And the radar of this storm just like instantly brought me back to that.
Do you
and
still
I
have
asked
that? I wonder.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that last night. I was like, oh, I need to ask my mom if
you
she knows where
should.
that, because it's such a cool picture. But just
would you ask Mike? You were like,
I said, how does this compare to Andrew?
Right.
Well, he said it's a different path, and I'm like, I get that, but I mean, as far as strength and size, he said the build of Irma is very similar. The winds, but we don't know how strong it's going to be when it hits or what it's going to look like when it hits, because Andrew was still that compact, super strong storm when it hit. After Irma goes over Cuba, over all these islands, the mountains of Cuba, for generations have weakened storms.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Right.
But it also depends on where it goes. If it keeps going over these islands,
right,
because then it doesn't have the power to draw from of that warm water.
Right, which is crazy. So I'm wondering too, but this is getting to the stats of it, but the size, because I think the diameter was like 425 or something. I don't know, Andrew's the stats on that.
Andrew was smaller, But the thing is, this storm is same compact eye and compact eye wall.
So like the strength and
the strength right around the eye wall. And I was seeing some reports, I guess, because it didn't really directly hit Puerto Rico, kind of skirted. And so on the outer bands, they were getting some gusts like 50, 60 miles an hour instead of the 185. So the strength is in its core, whereas some other storms, they might be weaker, but the stronger winds
are
go
outside.
Out, which Andrew was very much like that.
Really?
That's why you see the aerials of Homestead, Florida, which is where it impacted. There was nothing there.
I need to look that up. I don't know much about it.
There was nothing there. Like literal complete devastation. Now, granted, that was 1992. Building codes and everything after Andrew changed. So I don't know. It hopefully will be better when this storm hits.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting. I feel like growing up in Florida, you gotta have to become like
a weather person on the side.
Yeah.
You know it. You do seem to know a lot. I mean, that's Florida. I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Oh,
Not many
because
Floridians in here.
we all think that we're hurricane forecasters in Florida. I'm serious because we've just done
And
it our
then you go to
entire. I know.
college,
I used to go to Publix and get the little hurricane
Oh, yeah,
map
Publix.
and map it out and check the.
That's cool.
Is the barometric pressure going down? Oh man, it's getting stronger. Oh wait, how's that eye? Oh, it's reforming. Oh man,
That's great.
you
It's
know,
cool to see what things become like that in certain areas of the country. Like what's,
Oh,
like
yeah.
what's important to you.
Oh, like I
what you
knew-
learn.
Oh my God, I knew nothing about winter storms.
Right.
Every
Yeah, because why
winter-
would he? Right.
Every winter I asked Sue Palka like 9 million questions.
Still to this day.
I'd ask her what a derecho was.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
Like, oh, that thing is.
That's right.
We don't get those. But I can tell you all kinds of stuff about hurricanes.
Totally cool. Oh
But
my
yeah.
gosh.
No, so if anyone out there, if you have information about winter storms, please tell me because I know nothing.
Tweet him, Brody Logan.
I know
you
nothing.
see it right there.
Instead of I know nothing, Jon Snow, I know nothing about snow.
So good with the puns, so quick. I love it.
Don't encourage me.
I know. No, but do follow. He's like the Twitter king. I love following him. So definitely
Thank
check it
you.
out.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter.
We came
All
to
of
talk
you.
sports, but obviously some more information on the
we can-
weather.
we can keep talking
What,
sports.
what else are you excited about this season? I mean, what's your biggest thought going into NFL? I mean, I know college is more your thing. But you
Oh
do
no,
all-
no. Well, I mean, I
you do everything.
cover the NFL. I just
Yeah.
prefer.
You like,
pref-
I mean, enjoyment
I
wise.
enjoy college football. I mean, I still have Miami
exciting.
Hurricane season tickets, and
Yeah,
I was trying to
good.
get down to Miami, Florida State in a couple of weeks, but that's not.
Will you go to many games, you think? As much as you can?
As many as I can. I
Yeah.
usually go to 1 or 2 a year. Like I got to go to Notre Dame for the first time last year when Miami
Awesome.
played at Notre Dame, touchdown Jesus and all that. I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yes.
Where's Rudy?
I know.
So I try to go to 1 or 2 cool games a year. But yeah, for the NFL season, you know, it's always such a crapshoot, and it's become with the way contracts are and player movement.
Yeah.
Everyone has a chance, and you never know. There's always that team who's going to drop off, and there's a team you never even thought about who's just going to jump
Totally.
up. Like, I think the Falcons are going to drop off this year.
Drop off, you think?
Yeah,
Interesting.
they won so many close games last year, and I don't know. I think they're not going to be what they were last year. They might not even make the playoffs.
Wow, I wasn't hearing that, but now I am.
So that's my
Wow.
that'll
Any
be
Atlanta
my-
people out there, let me know.
That'll be my little prediction here. I don't think they're going to be. I mean,
Yeah,
watch
yeah.
them go. They're going to be 15-1, and I'm going to be completely wrong.
Other people saying they're coming back with a fury, like
Right.
But
no, they're gonna get up big, 28-3 in every game, and then end up losing.
we knew that joke was coming somewhere. Had to. Yeah. So
But-
I'm super excited too. Yeah.
And I think the Redskins. The Redskins are in football purgatory. We're in that area where you don't really make the playoffs, or you might barely make the playoffs, but you're also not bad enough to get a good draft pick and really change the team. So they're going to be a few games are going to determine if they are 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, or 6-10. Maybe not 10-6.
Yeah. If we're being honest, what are the biggest? I mean, I want to maybe go to Redskins Cowboys this year. I would like to. I've never been to one. I know it's a big rival here. It's fun.
Any of
FedEx is
the
crazy.
NFC rivalries, it's going to
Yeah.
be nuts. The tailgating,
Totally.
the fan experience.
Yeah.
I got to go to Redskins Cowboys at Jerry World last year in
Oh.
Dallas, and that thing is
I've
insane.
never been to.
Thank you.
Kyle, hey. I've never the new because they revamped it a couple years ago. 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
it's insane.
The Sky open Sky.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
just the whole thing. It's a spectacle.
Yeah.
And I often
It's one of the bigger ones. FedEx
It's
is the
massive.
biggest, right, in NFL, I think. by
Well,
some standard?
No, well,
Or-
because they blocked off a lot of seats
Okay.
because they can't sell them.
Got it. So they don't
Um,
count it as
Exactly.
a beer anymore.
But the thing with Cowboy Stadium, new Cowboy Stadium, it is super cool. It's huge. It's insane. But it's kind of antiseptic. It's sterile. It's like,
It
where's the
is.
life? Like, it's just,
It's a good word.
and there's such a giant, okay, so the video board goes from like the 20
Yeah.
to the 20.
Oh.
So your eye is just looking, you're just watching TV.
Yeah,
You're not even
that's a
watching
bummer.
the game. You're paying a ton of money to be at a sports bar, an expensive sports bar.
I don't think I remember that. Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. Wait, the football game's happening right here.
Right.
But it's like your eye is tricked and you're just watching the video board.
Yeah. So that big game Sunday, you're doing the special at 7:30.
Yeah, Eagles Redskins
AM.
Sunday, 1 o'clock here on Fox 5, 7:30 a.m. Redskins game time here on Fox 5.
You'll be
Tune in.
chatting.
Hey, listen, I know people like to watch whatever pregame shows they want, but if you're a Redskins fan or even an Eagles fan, if you want just to hear about this game,
Yeah. And that's what you'll be doing. You'll be promoting the upcoming game every Sunday.
we're previewing what's going
That's
on with
great.
that game. I mean,
Previewing.
if you're turning on ESPN, they might talk about the Redskins game for like 2 minutes.
Right.
5 minutes. We're going an hour.
Speaking of that, who is ESPN saying are the big people this year? Patriots and Steelers is what I was reading?
Yeah,
Or-
Patriots. Steelers are going to be very good.
Interesting.
Patriots, but then also Seahawks. Seahawks just
That's what
made
you're
a
saying.
trade for a defensive lineman from the Jets who is just a stud, and they already had one of the best defenses in the league. They're going to be very good again. The Packers are going to be good again. The NFC has a lot of good teams, but the cream of the AFC is probably better. Probably the two best teams in the league are the Patriots and the Steelers going into the season. And then after them, it's going to be another tier of a bunch of NFC teams, and we kind of see where they fall. I mean, everyone's hyping up the Buccaneers, and I think that's the Hard Knocks effect. So they were on Hard Knocks on HBO this year, and like everyone watches them and gets all pumped and
That's
excited.
right. That is an effect. Isn't that interesting?
It
How the
happens
overlap?
every year. It was interesting because I was seeing someone did a social media optimism index for all 32 teams, and way out in front was the Buccaneers, and that's because people not just in Tampa or Buccaneers fans are tweeting and talking on social media about like positive about the Buccaneers, like, oh, look how good Jameis Winston looks. Well, yeah, because they show all his good passes in this show, and they show him being a great teammate, and getting his team fired up.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the warts so much.
Yeah.
And you're getting and you get the personal stories, which I love. And you're like, oh man, I like this fifth wide receiver that might make the team. Really, he's probably not that good, but they like edit it in such a way that he looks great.
Right.
So I don't know. That's a bit of a misnomer. I think they still have a good chance of making the playoffs, but they're a team that is being hyped up. I think more so because everyone's watching them. I mean, they have Deshaun Jackson now. They have Chris Baker. They have a few former Redskins. So I miss those guys. Well, just because of what they did, and like Chris Baker's just an interesting
They were
personality.
big names. Yeah, they were big up here.
So, and a nice guy. But
That's cool. You get to meet a fair amount, huh, in your stuff?
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Here and
we
there.
do. I like it more when I get to cover things that aren't necessarily at Redskins Park, because then you get to, it's like the guard is down.
Sure.
Is when everyone's coming at them in the locker room with the cameras and everything. They're like,
Of course. It's
which
a
is
little less
understandable.
personal.
Yeah, and then they just go into football talk mode. A lot of them.
Totally.
Because some and they're so worried that you're going to twist their words, which in video we don't really do that. We kind of can't.
Right.
But I've seen it happen. So when you get to see them outside of there, the guard is down. You can actually talk to them as a human being, like, oh hey, you've been naked around me, but we haven't actually met each other. Because that's kind of what it is. If there's a new player, it's so awkward.
That's funny. Well, why are you in the newsroom today? You're doing something for tonight.
Yeah, so I was doing that story on Shadow Man, the new tackling dummy.
Yeah. That's neat.
Had one of the founders in studio kind of demonstrating that, which would be a cool thing for high school. He's presenting to high school teams in the area and
cool.
youth leagues. So then, we got to do something about the injuries, especially the head injuries from the youth level on. There's a story recently, Centennial High School in Howard County, so just north of here. they're not playing football this year.
Oh, did they?
They disbanded their
got
football
rid of
team
the-
because they didn't have enough participation. Because kids didn't want to put their bodies through that.
Or were
Parents didn't-
prohibited from.
or the
from
parents didn't want them to.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has to be something done to maybe bridge that gap, and maybe it would be saying, okay, it's all flag football, but then you need to somehow learn how to tackle.
So different.
Before high school and college.
To play.
And it's like you can't just drive a car.
No.
Or you're gonna kill yourself.
Right.
Like, so maybe something like this or something else that comes along would be the type of thing to bridge that gap, be kind of the training wheels before you get on a bike. So it's pretty cool. You should check it out at 5 o'clock today.
Yeah. That's cool. Do you think it's a good solution? I mean, that'll be.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I really
You've
like
done
it.
a report on it. You've seen it.
Yeah. So I've done my research on it and I've seen it. Actually, I tackled one today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do you know how? Is that your?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I played football.
Oh, you did?
I played defensive line and linebacker in high school. I was like 235 pounds. I was a pretty big dude. I was recruited to play in college, but then I went on a recruiting trip to the University of Florida. And then once I saw how big they were, I was like, I'm going to be Rudy and just get my brains bashed in. I'm going to be the tackling dummy. I don't want to do that.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like,
I didn't know that about you. Wow.
I'll just go to college and get a lot of debt.
Instead. Miami, were they good?
But I have my brain.
Football. Yeah.
Yeah, Miami was very good.
When
I was there, I just missed the last national championship. I was there for the 2002 national championship game that was stolen from us, that Ohio State won.
Not biased.
Miami fans are very bitter about it, actually. And I used to be. Actually, no. I was kind of the only one at the time because, fine, yes, there was a late penalty flag, but Miami turned the ball over so many times in that game. They didn't even deserve to be in overtime. So be happy we were in overtime. Then we had this horrible moment.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe it would have been better just to get blown out. But yeah, I was there for some great Miami teams. I've been there for some boring Miami teams. But Mark Richt, new coach as of last year, he's got him on the right track.
ACC, right?
ACC.
So.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so good to chat with you in our quiet newsroom today. Not really a lot going on, but it's good to have you on here.
Yeah,
there
thank
we are.
you. I know, yeah.
It's quiet, but I'm so glad Brody's in here. Like I said, I'm just trying to snag him as much as I can because we want to make sure we integrate some sports into this. We've been talking about weather. We're talking about so much politics, so it's good to mix it up.
Apocalypse or
I know,
something?
right? It's always so quiet at the lunch hour. This is why this is your lunch hour little
okay.
break. But we're gonna just jump around to other news stuff. So you're gonna go work on your thing, or?
Yeah, I got to do that, and I got to work on stuff for the pregame shows.
All right, great. So Sunday, he'll be on Sunday morning,
Sunday morning, please
7:30.
watch.
You're on tonight at the 5 o'clock show.
Listen, if you're thinking, hey, that sounds early, you're right, but get your football fix first.
I was just gonna say you're right.
Get it first.
Yeah, and that specific game to the preview of what's going on that day. That's pretty cool.
Ready for church?
Yeah.
Put it on the background. Learn about the Redskins. You can go talk about it with your friends. Getting ready to go out tailgating. I know you people. If you're going for tailgating, you got to get that food ready early.
Church or tailgating, either way.
The only two things. The only two things our viewers do.
We know that. Awesome, Brody. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
There's the Twitter guys at the bottom of the
Do
screen.
I just leave at this point?
Yeah, you're gonna do the slide out. Oh, you didn't.
No, I was going to, and then I
Take the mic
remembered
off.
I'm tethered.
Yeah, I'm tethered. All right, cool. Well, that's Brody Logan. We'll talk to him again when he's back, whenever that is. You can just drape it. So I guess, guys, we're gonna go. I mean, it's getting kind of late. It's already 2 o'clock. We're usually off, but I think I'm just gonna roll it over to the White House. We're gonna hear that joint statement from President Trump and Kuwaiti leader. And that was slated for today live. It should start soon. We're seeing the Fox reporter up right now, and we got a bump shot of what that looks like. So let's go inside the White House for that, and then we'll come back in. We'll close down the show, and we'll give you more coverage online, of course, throughout the day, and into tomorrow with more updates on the hurricane. Of course, that's been our focus. Hey, Terrence, thanks for watching. Thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks, guys, for commenting. All right, so checking in to what is upcoming in just a few moments, this joint statement with President Trump.
to enlist some Democrats to do it, even though it's going through the reconciliation process. So a very strong signal yesterday to members of his own party who might stand in his way that if you can't help me get the ball across the goal line, I'm going to reach out to other people who can. Now, of course, this has all been criticized as setting up a big battle in December over the debt ceiling and funding the government that could give a lot of leverage to the Democrats. I'm reminded by people inside the White House that there will be another bill coming up for Harvey relief funding and another bill for Irma relief funding that will probably hit about that same time, Harris, which will give the president leverage to get some bipartisanship on board for something longer on the debt ceiling and on the budget. Harris? Thanks, Harris. All right, thanks.
All right, guys, just an update here. You're looking at two shots. One is, you can see the reporters kind of setting up, getting ready for this press conference. And this press conference was slated actually for 1:30, so it's obviously on pretty late, but we're going to stay right here hoping that it does start up shortly so you guys can check into this. We're also going to have it on our Facebook page, so if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can check into this. And typically these are generally, I would say, short to medium-sized length press conferences with another leader. So that's what we can expect there. Yeah, we're going to leave it inside this room here, inside the, I believe, the East Room of the White House for this coming up shortly.
afternoon.
And A and B receivers is the level 2
All right, guys,
version.
so we're getting in a new press conference from Miami-Dade County. I'll show you that there. We'll check in there before we come back to the White House and wait for this press conference to begin. Again, it was slated for 1:30, but is a little late today. So let's check in to updates on Hurricane Irma preps in Miami.
And help each other out. We're a great community, and together we are stronger. So please help your fellow Miamis. County Services update. Miami-Dade Transit, our Miami-Dade Department of Transportation and Public Works, is opening their parking garages to the public as an area of refuge for personal cars. The following 8 garages will be open starting at noon today, and availability of spaces will be held on a first-come, first-served basis. Those garages are Dadeland South, Dadeland North, South Miami, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Arlington Heights, Okeechobee, Brownsville, and Santa Clara. However, please note that Miami-Dade County will not be responsible for any damage, theft, vandalism to any vehicles parked in our garage. Metro Bus, Metro Rail, and Metro Mover services will begin operating on a Sunday schedule starting tomorrow. Miami International Airport. Our Miami International Airport remains open and operational. Some flights have been canceled, so passengers need to call their airline directly. Port Miami. Beginning tomorrow at noon, all commercial vessels, including cruise and cargo, will depart our port. We will close the seaport beginning at 8 p.m. Friday evening. Department of Solid Waste Management, all garbage and recycling services will continue to be provided as usual today and tomorrow. Bulky waste scheduling, and that's the scheduling of bulky waste, was suspended as of 8 o'clock yesterday. However, crews will continue to pick up previously scheduled piles. Again, please don't cut trees and trim bushes. This is not the time to do that. And if you do it now, we won't pick it up. You need to go and take your trimmings over to one of our recycling centers. If residents need to immediately dispose of trash, please go to one of our 13 neighborhood trash and recycling centers, which will continue to operate extended hours from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. Parks and libraries are closed as of this morning. And like I mentioned yesterday, I want to encourage businesses to close early and let their employees go home and prepare. This storm is coming and our community needs to be ready. If you're a business owner and don't need to open today or tomorrow, and certainly not this weekend, then don't close your stores and offices and send your employees home. This will not only give our residents time to prepare and get unnecessary cars off the road, but this will also alleviate the congestion at our gas stations since people won't need any gas to get to work. Speaking of gas, those who still are in search of gas for their cars, there's an app for that. It's called Download Gas Buddy from your App Store or Google Play. It lets you find gas stations with fuel and alerts you to the current gas prices. Those of you who are planning on leaving town and have not left yet, I urge you to leave. I urge you to leave early. If you're not on the road today, it's not recommended you try to leave tomorrow. We anticipate traffic congestion to worsen as more and more people try to evacuate. The worst place to be in the middle of a hurricane is in your car on an open roadway. Once again, I'd like to remind everyone that 911 is for emergencies only. Please call 311 for questions related to the storm or visit www.miamidade.gov. Our 311 call center is now operating extended hours. You may experience wait times, so please be patient. I want to ensure all of our residents that although our county administrative offices are closed today and tomorrow, rest assured that all our essential personnel are working to ensure your safety not only before the storm, but after the storm passes. I also support Senator Rubio and Congressman Curbelo in asking Congress to approve this week a spending plan that includes relief for victims of Hurricane Irma. These are all the updates that I have at this time, and I'll be taking questions after my comments in Spanish and Commissioner Monestein's comments in Creole. So now for my comments in Spanish. Buenas tardes a todos. Seguimos vigilando de cerca el huracán Irma. El último aviso muestra que la tormenta sigue siendo un huracán de categoría 5 con vientos máximos de 180 millas por hora. También a las 11 de la mañana se emitió una alerta de huracán para todo Miami-Dade. Esto significa que las condiciones de huracán son posibles generalmente en 48 horas. Según el pronóstico actual, el sábado se empezarán a sentir vientos de tormenta tropical en el condado. Repito, los vientos de tormenta tropical pues se pueden sentir aquí en este condado el sábado. He dicho y lo repito, los residentes del condado de Miami-Dade necesitan estar preparados. Anoche di una orden de evacuación obligatoria para todas las casas móviles, la zona y las islas barreras de la zona B. Esta evacuación, la zona A.
All right, guys. So as they finish out this press conference in Spanish and then in Creole, just a live or a look rather at this radar that we've been kind of watching for the day. We're going to have lots more updates for you tomorrow on where the storm is moving and what is happening. We'll get Caitlin Roth in here again to talk weather. I want to thank you guys for joining the stream. You can jump over to our Facebook page. We're going to have President Trump up there with the Kuwaiti leader that is still kind of waiting to begin. So with that, guys, more complete coverage on air and on our digital as well. You can check out our website, fox5dc.com, our Twitter, Fox5DC. We're updating everything on our Facebook page. So stay with us for all of that. We hope that you've enjoyed this coverage. We'll be chatting with more people in the newsroom and keeping it all relevant, everything breaking, everything live tomorrow here on Fox 5 Live. All right, guys, with that, leave you with a shot of our Capitol building. Have a good one.